Hello, good afternoon, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another awesome afternoon of entertaining racing action in the Sim Racing Collective Porsche Cup Season 1, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right, folks, we're back once again for another Sunday afternoon while drivers will be roaring the way around a circuit of choosing in their Porsche 992.2 GT3 Cup cars. But where exactly are we today? Well, for our midway point of the season, as we transition across the threshold, we have made our way to a circuit where the road surface changes will definitely feel as our drivers will be put for a rough threshold, because we are here in the US state of Florida for the Sebring International Raceway. A circuit opened in December of 1950, it owes a lot of its popularity to its original use case. Situated on the site of the former Hendricks Army Air Base, this is a circuit that was once home to B-17s taxiing and taking off, and nowadays it's the place where taking off is the theme of a driver's championship campaign. Because our drivers make their way around this 3.74 mile circuit, they'll find that its 17 corners and lack of elevation change is hard enough already, and particularly if it's going to be a wet weather race, the amount of water that will build up on the circuit is going to be hard to shift. But in dry conditions, those 17 corners alone present an amiable challenge, given the fact that you do have sweepers, hairpins, and also rapid fire direction changes. But what really sells this circuit is the fact that you do have about 2/3 of the circuit running on modern asphalt, and then the final third, particularly on the back end of the lap, is still retaining the original concrete slabs of all those years ago when the circuit was once an air base. What it means, road surface transitions are key and need to be managed well. We'll definitely see our Porsche Cup machines being shaken around, and for our drivers they need to keep cool, calm and consistent, because every minor mistake here will be exaggerated to a major degree, and who exactly will be able to avoid that and come home to victory? Well, that's what we're here to find out. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in today, or the one only place you can catch all the racing action on a weekly basis here at the Sim Racing Collective, and as of course on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com and search for TSRC or the Sim Racing Collective, and you can be catching all the racing action there, and why not subscribe today so that way you don't miss a beat when we do go racing, as we do say hello to a few of you in particular in the YouTube chat. We do say hello there to Dave Barnes, who says let's go. Indeed, Dave, we're with you on that one. Let's go racing, because we are almost there to go and racing today. But in terms of our schedule, times in none other than Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC, where it's here today that we do have another one of our main format rounds, whereby we don't have two sprint races, we have our singular 60-minute race. And so what it means, in approximately 3 minutes time, we'll be beginning our open qualifying session, 20 minutes in duration from 1 o'clock UK time, and after that we'll then be making our way to the grid for our 60-minute full-on feature race, where the only theme of the game is going to be firstly to get a good start and then manage your strategy and come home victorious. In the content you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action as it unfolds over the entirety of the season, including today. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's give you a recap of how things have proceeded after 2 rounds of racing. Because as we can see, last time out, we were in Japan at the Fuji International Speedway. It's Grand Prix layout, laying host to our first 2 sprint race rounds. But what exactly happened in Japan? Well, it was dry conditions in both races, but I can tell you one thing, it was absolutely pouring with some brilliant battling, and we got to see at the very front of the field Kieran Sharp, the championship leader from Algarve, leading the way once again, making it 3 wins in a row, and nobody was quite able to stop him in the end. Jamie Nuttall, meanwhile, well, he finished second in both races, and therefore he is the closest rival to Sharp at this time. But understandably, it is the combination of consistency and pace for Kieran Sharp that is proven to be unstoppable at the moment, and can anybody slow him down before it's too late? We also saw a brilliant run to the podium in race number 1 from none other than Arton Solono, who was very happy with his qualifying points, as we were to find out after the race, and he was shocked in the end of the fact that Sharp was so quick at the front of the field. But on top of that, he was very happy to pick up that podium on his debut. And in our second race of the day, well, Sharp and Nuttall win the first 2 spots on the podium, but we saw a different name on that third spot of the podium, and it was none other than Janos Venzo, who came all the way through the field to a 3rd place finish, and he fought incredibly hard and wasn't afraid to lunge under the brakes, and indeed absolutely abused the ABS when he needed to in order to be able to get the job done. And of course, that was one of the big key themes, of course, with our reverse grid in race number 2 in the sprint races, whereby we did get to see a big shuffle in the field and plenty of battling going on within that top 6 reverse grid. But now we're here today for the Sebring International Circuit. It is Sunday the 22nd of February, and as all the drivers get set, there's only one race, as we mentioned only moments ago, and this could definitely have a big impact on the fates of our drivers in the championship, because after this one we've only got 2 rounds to go, and next time out, of course, we will be in the United Kingdom for the Alton Park International Circuit, which will be having our 2 sprint race round. But as we make our way deeper into this one, well, let's talk a little bit about our host circuit for today, shall we? And as we can see, we are racing the full layout, known as the International Layout, or INT, for the Sebring International Raceway. Located near the city of Sebring in the Highlands County of the US state of Florida. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track maps contained within it. A two-dimensional diagram absolutely befits this circuit because the elevation changes around here are absolutely minimal, as you would come to expect from a site of a former airbase, because at the end of the day, you don't want elevation changes on a runway or a taxiway. But as the drivers take on this circuit, what they'll find is that they're confronted with a wide variety of sweepers, none more so than Gender B and Bend at turn 1, named after the infamous Belgian driver who was one of the very first to find major success here in endurance racing in the 1950s. As the drivers then make the way all the way onto the smooth asphalt at turns 2 through to 7, they'll be coming through a very tight and technical sequence of corners there at turns 3, 4 and 5, where it's all going to be about low gears and making sure not to hit those apex curves, while they then power their way through the long right-hander, a big bend, all the way down to the hairpin at turn number 7. There it's going to be hard on the brakes. They come through the first gear corner, and as they power the way out through the kinks, they'll then make the way through Manuel Fangio corner at turns 8 and 9 completely flat out to head in towards Cunningham at turn number 10. Then it's going to be hard on the brakes, and they'll try to set up their lines as best as possible for Collier Bend at turn number 11. Expect turn number 10 to be one of the big overtaking spots, as will be turn number 7. As they come out to Collier, it'll then be into Tower Bend at turn number 13. There, they'll be turning right, a sharp 90-degree right-hander, and as they come down towards Bishop Bend, they'll make their way back from asphalt onto the old concrete. And as they transition onto the rough road surface, this is where the batting will definitely get rough, because they come from Bishop into the first part of Le Mans at turn number 15. And then it's going to be the elongated right-hander, followed up by a quick left-hander. And it's all about a better run through turn number 16, the infamous Le Mans bend, which gives way to a long backstretch of Ullman. Down the Ullman straight, they'll charge, and as they do, they'll set themselves up for the best part of 3 wide in the closest to racing as they get ready to go into Sunset Bend. And going through the long right-hander, they'll complete lap and do it all over again. And if you're curious why Sunset Bend has been given that name, well, over the years it's been found in endurance racing that when the sun is setting, the sun will definitely be in your eyes at Sunset Bend, and that's why it takes that nickname. But as I try to get ready to go racing around this wonderful circuit, well, let's give you a quick reminder of the rules. And in terms of our rules, because we are back to a feature race round, this is a fixed setup series firstly. That doesn't change regardless of the format, whereby our drives are provided with a setup by the Sim Racing Collective Administration, and fuel loads have been restricted to 55 litres. Our qualifying session is open, so that means all drivers will be out on circuit looking to go for pole position, but they can of course try to use the slipstream off of one another, and they can also have the risk of impeding one another. In terms of our feature race, or our main format race, we will see the race commencing by a standing start, as is the tradition of Porsche Cup racing, particularly in Porsche Super Cup, of which iRacing does focus its regulations around the real-life Porsche Super Cup regulations, hence the arrival of ABS and TCS for this season. And each driver has one fast repair available should they need to use it for damage, although typically they won't want to go into the pits unless it is for their one and only pit stop they're expecting in the race. And a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty. That may be the other reason they come into the pits, if they accumulate 70 more instant points. All race stewarding, meanwhile, shall be conducted post-round by our dedicated stewarding team here at TSRC. But as we make our way back to circuit side, the big question that we haven't answered yet, how do the standings stand after what has been the best part then of 2 rounds of racing? Well, we start off with the Drivers' Championship. And what we can see is that Kieran Sharp right now leading the way, and well, leading for the Sim Racing Collective Esports there by the best part of none other than 24 points. And the challenge is somebody's got to try and stop him winning another race today, because otherwise he might be breaking away to the point that he could be very comfortable all the way to the very end. Jamie Nuttall, meanwhile, sits in second there for Cracked Racing, really has been the second best so far this season, ahead of his teammate there of Martin Blankensteiner, whose form is definitely coming forward after a bit of a rough start to the season in Portugal with those wet conditions. Well, last time out definitely did not feel the rough and kept it nice and smooth with a 5th and a 4th, and therefore with all the battling he enjoyed, well, I suspect he'll be going to Sebring today feeling as though the podium is calling his name. Mikel Estevez sits in 4th place there, the ZRT Momo driver who showed moments of brilliance at Fuji. However, that brilliance was not perhaps rewarded as much as it should have been, and he is only a point ahead of Samuel Crane as the DLR FP1 driver, who definitely really put on a big fight then, has inched his way into the top 5. He's only the best part of 7 points ahead of Martin Foster for RPMS Sim Sport, who's had ups and downs so far this season, with Quinton van Wingerden meanwhile in 7th place there for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, and he's definitely finding his form quite quickly and has moved ahead of his fellow countryman there of Raymond van Zutphen. And then we do have in ninth Bobby Moss, who unfortunately won't be on the grid today due to personal circumstances, but I suspect he may be tuning in. And if so, hello to you, Bobby. I hope you're doing well. And then behind the Nigel Mansell Fan Club driver, who definitely sent reverberations up and down the grid last time out with some brilliant fighting, we do have Arn Solano, who on his debut for the Kulkas crew, or the Swedish driver, absolutely loved it out there on his debut. And indeed, I do believe for the team, for several of their drivers, their first ever time racing in a league format. We look forward to plenty more from them today, including Solano and also Janos Wenzel there in 11th place, the privateer, who definitely demonstrated a huge amount of ability in race number 2 to come through for that podium, but he'll be hoping now that he can repeat that here today, given his season so far has been one that's had ups and downs. Otto Karis sits in 12th there for the Flying Dutchman, ahead of Pavel Grilica, and the Kulkas crew, meanwhile, he's in the 62-point position, whereby he's just ahead of Mav Gardner, and it's only based on result countback. The Sim Racing Collective Esports driver, meanwhile, is 2 points ahead of both William Chandler and Johanna Riffin, where Riffin are behind Chandler based on result countback, and it's Leon Burkey, Patrick Masagowski, Tom Davidson, and Mitch Woollardson who complete your top 20. Outside of that top 20, not to be forgotten about, we do have plenty more names, including Felix Moggi in 21st place on 42 points. He's 3 ahead of Guillaume Hamling. And then we do have Marlin Schwab ahead of Stefan Hutter, with Joe Pinder in 25th place there on none other than 25 points. He's 7 ahead of Edvard Keziks. And then behind the Latvian driver for Keziks Racing, we do have David Humphreys on 0 points, as we do for Gogi Konzabo, Milos Meski, and also Zach Salzuk, who round off your top 30. And outside that top 30, also on 0 points there, we do have Liam Giles, as we do have none other than Filip Klimalic, who's joining the grid as of tonight. And we look forward to seeing what the Cooksax crew driver there could do. And he's ahead of Paul Sims with Andrew Pike, Josh Mellington, Jack Southfield, Glenn D. Dionysis, Gareth Ronda, Vladimir Blinkov, and Usama Karniani, rounding off your 40 driver standings. But coming to the team's championship standings, meanwhile, well, here we can see in the team's considerations, it's the Sim Racing Collective Esports who lead by 24 points over Cracked Racing. And so far in the first 2 rounds, they've had the slight edge. However, they have not been able to make a clear breakaway, but the top 2 are definitely breaking away from the rest of the field. The Flying Dutchman sits in 3rd place there on 145. They are only a single point ahead of Kulkas crew. And then we do have DLR FP1 in 5th place there on 124 points. It's further 22 to Red Bulls Racing, who are trying to hold it in there, but they've got the problem of ZRT Momo, only the best part of 10 points behind them. And there's a sizable gap to Aspire, who've got half the points of ZRT Momo. And then we do have Connexus Motorsports on 25 points ahead of Keziks Racing, and yet score any points, Simoff Racing there in 11th place. So that's how the standings stand. You've been brought up to speed with regards to the story, and now we are here for the qualifying session, ladies and gentlemen. And well, as our drivers do continue to make the way on around, and those first laps are starting to come in on the board, well, we do see here Kieran Sharp making his way on through. And as he does so, we're looking at rather quick at the moment, as we just do upload our overlay there. We have a technical issue with the overlay, but all seems to be sorted. And as he makes his way into this braking zone right now, well, what's Kieran Sharp been able to do? And the answer is, well, he's currently your provisional pole sitter by 1.5 tenths almost over Martin Blankensteiner. And Blankensteiner, meanwhile, I think hoping he can find a bit more time, albeit he is currently in 2nd, and that's the best he's been so far in qualifying this season provisionally. Albeit I wonder whether perhaps he's thinking to himself there's going to be even more of an opportunity as he draws his way onwards. Now, as he does so, if you are in the chat right now, don't be shy, feel free to say hi, as we do say hello there to Johnny Woo, who is cheering on Cracked Racing, the Cracked Menaces there he refers to them. And well, I do love that nickname being given to the Cracked Racing team. We also do say hello there to Alberto Fuentes, who says, let's go at Miguel, and that's in relation to none other than what is, I do believe, well, in fact, that is Mikel Estevez there, as we do see the Spaniard making his way onwards, and we're coming down towards turn number 10 at the moment. Well, the Spaniard in definitely a very Spanish livery machine, albeit that's the colours of the car and ZOT Momo there. And well, if anybody does remember back on the PlayStation 1, or the PSX as the console was also known, if anybody remembers the title Ridge Racer Type 4, I'm getting slight vibes with regards to other racing teams from that one. I don't know whether they based the livery around what was one of the racing teams in that game all those years ago, but if so, it's definitely an interesting tribute there, and I do absolutely love the colours on the Spaniard's car, but it might just be a coincidence, to be fair, but I'm sure they'll let me know if it's coincidence or not. But as he weaves and winds his way through turns 14, 15 and 16, well, meanwhile, we do come to our driver who's new to the grid today for Kulkas crew, and it is none other than Filip Klimowicz. And as the Polish driver makes his way down the Ulman Straight, we did have a bit of an off there for Liam Giles, who's just rejoined in the background. And he brings himself back on the British driver there in the number 29. But meanwhile, Klimowicz is making his way down. And well, right now, currently sat in 12th place here and hoping for a little bit more today. But of course, all drivers will be hoping for something a bit more, because understandably, they want to try and make a good impression they can. But as he comes towards the timing line, well, we're going to get an on board with other drivers shortly. And Sharp, meanwhile, is just leaving the pit lane, so he's decided to tow back to the pit. And in doing so, put on a fresh pair of tyres and perhaps a bit more fuel back in the car and get him ready to go once again. And how important is qualifying going to be here at the Sebring circuit? Well, the answer to that question, simply put, is it's a mixture. If you qualify towards the back, it's definitely going to feel quite painful, although you can fight with other drivers around here. The only problem is, of course, fighting at the Sebring circuit can normally take quite a bit of time to resolve, especially if you start at Gender B and Bend at turn number 1. The fighting from there can go all the way up to turn number 7 at the hairpin, for example. That's almost a whole half of the lap in terms of relative distance covered, and therefore it means you can cost yourself the best part of half a second to a second's worth of time compared to the car in front. That's why you do want to qualify relatively well, but overtaking is not impossible. Ideally, you do want to be within the front 3 rows if you can, within the top 10 as a minimum, to give yourself the best possible strategic advantage. Of course, strategy is going to be a big part here today, much like what we saw in our season opener in Portugal, albeit the question marks in Portugal were definitely about the fact who picked the right tyres to go with, because we did have the rain there. Now, some of you with the astute eyesight may notice the fact we do have a few small puddles around the circuit, very minor ones now. We did have rain before our drivers turned up today, however the circuit has mostly dried. There is the risk of some rain potentially towards the end of the racing, but it is a very low risk. But if it does come, you can understand that all of our drivers will be very keen to try and survive on dry tyres. We are expecting this to be a slick shod race today. We are not expecting anybody to run this race in wet, and if we do see rain right at the end of the race, it's probably going to be in the final 5 to 10 minutes, and it will be a game of survival. It'll be spotty rain, but do you decide to go into the wet tyre knowing that you are going to be sacrificing the best part of 30 seconds as a minimum stationary in the pit lane, so grand total in the region about 50 seconds end to end to the pit, or do you stay on the slick tyre and just trying to keep pumping the heat in, watching out for the puddles if they should arrive? Well, as we can see the graphic at the top centre of your screen, giving you an idea that we have an ambient temperature of 20 degrees centigrade, a track temperature meanwhile well above that, 32 degrees centigrade, and a wind speed at the moment of 31 kilometres an hour. That is a huge wind speed around here, which you would expect at an airfield, of course. And do keep in mind, at the southeastern portion of this circuit, at Le Mans Bend, if you go beyond Le Mans Corner, you will actually drive into Sebring Regional Airport. That's how close this circuit is still to the runways that are used today, and therefore this circuit really is based in its historical elements. But we've got mostly clear skies with a little bit of cloud hanging over right now, but there is cloud gradually on its way, but we are not expecting any rain, so it's a very low risk, and it will all play into or out of the hands of our drivers. But as we put the weather away for now, and Sharp continues to make his way onwards. Well, let's look at some other drivers out there as well, because it can't just be the story of Sharpie today. And as we do see on number 98, Jack Southwood coming on through. He's currently the 7th fastest out there, and he's looking for a bit more time. And also what we can see is that Guillaume Hamling, he's been able to find some time in the all-white machine there, the number 351. Well, he's hoping perhaps to get a little bit closer, given the fact he is currently 21 thousandths off of Sharp's overall pole time. So therefore, there is time to be found here for Hamling, and he's just got to find a little bit more if he can. Now, we are aware of the fact that at the top centre of your time tower, ladies and gents, we are missing the amount of time remaining qualifying at the moment. We do have 8 minutes left on the clock. We are going to try and fix that in the background in the interim if we can. But as we do see our drivers making their way onwards, well, right now for Hamling, there's still more time to be done here, and he'll be hoping that with the time he's got remaining, he might be able to get that job done. But we will see what he's going to be able to do here. Indeed, for all of our drivers, there's not long left in the flow of this qualifying session, and understandably, with the time that is remaining, I think those who've got a chance to do it will now be able to absolutely garner. So in fact, Hamling there does jump up to pole position by 2 attempts over Kieran Sharp, so he's able to find a response. He'll be very happy with that, but now understandably he's got a little bit more work to do. Can he find a way to get it done? Well, we will see. As we do get your timer there in the time tower, we apologise for that. You can see now 7 minutes left on the clock, and well, your Luxembourgish driver right now raising the bar as Janos Wenzel also improves. So Wenzel is now up into 2nd place there, the German driver, in the 313. So this may be the day where Kieran Sharp's hold of the top is suddenly ruptured, and well, these drivers have all been pushing hard, no doubt about it. But speaking of trying to make the counter-attack, as Sharp's come across that timing line, we do look to Jack Southfield in the meantime, who's found a bit of a draft there going down the start-finish straight. But let's jump on board with him for a flying lap of this circuit, shall we? As he makes his way in towards Gender B and Bend. So going into the opening corner and dropping all the way down from 6th gear to 4th, tucking in as nice and tight as that barrier eventually, now powering his way out and up towards turn number 3. Flat out here he goes, taking the Kinker 2, and now onto the brakes here, 150 metres from corner apex down to 3rd gear. Late apex, roll the momentum forward, take a bit of apex curve at turn number 4, and now onto the brakes once more, coming through the long left-hander at turn number 5, and back on the throttle here, letting the car roll out slightly wide to take the exit curve before he makes his way through what will be Big Bend. Coming over to the left-hand side gradually now, let the car creep on over, and as he does so, well, Southfield here gets ready to go onto the brakes, and braking at about 170 metres from corner apex all the way down to second gear, decides not to go to first, that's to reduce wheel spin on exit, and now make his way through Fangio, flat out every step of the way, as he comes through the right-hander of 8 and then to the long left-hander at turn number 9, but very shortly he'll get himself ready to go onto the brakes once again here for turn number 10. In towards Cunningham Bend, onto the brakes, down to second, and immediately stamp the throttle on and get it over to the inside the left-hander at turn number 11 through Cunningham, and now gets him in towards the right-hander of Tower. First to 12 and then to 13. Hard on the brakes as soon as he exits 12, he's got to be on the brakes and straighten the steering wheel, braking 100 metres from apex at turn number 13, rolls out a little bit wider. You can see the car bouncing around on the exit curb, and the grass is still on the outside of it, but now through Bishop Bend, the double apex left-hander, onto the concrete he's gone, and onto the brakes, 150 metres from apex at turn 15, down to third gear, and now bringing the car onto the apex there for the left-hander and back onto the brakes now. They can legally use the runoff area there on the left-hand side to open up the corner, but of course it is a double-edged sword. The more you open it up, well, the more of a amount of speed you can carry into the corner, but of course you unsettle the car the more you pull it to the left. So in the end, Southfield is able to find the right balance, and coming in towards Sunset Bend, those cones indicate when you want to start turning in. He brakes about 200 metres from apex, trail braking on down to third gear, oversteering on the rear end of the car intentionally there to get it to rotate through, and well, for Jack Southfield in the end as he makes his way towards the timing line. Well, what's it going to be? It has been a quick lap to be fair from Southfield, but is it going to move up the order? He was ninth and it moves into fourth, so it's a great lap from Southfield, and it now only puts in the best part of 2.5 tenths off of the overall pole time. So some great work coming in there from him. He's got more work to do, but we'll see what he's going to be able to do here. As you can definitely see there on the circuit map on the right hand side of your screen just how busy it is on this circuit right now. All the drivers definitely trying to find as much space as humanly possible, and well, as things proceed right now for these drivers, it's understandable in the fact that they're running out of time and they need to get a move on. But as we put the circuit map away, we do say hello there to none other than Carell. I do believe that is Carell TJE427, who says gives a shout out there to Raymond, and well, so drivers continue to roar the way around. That's to Raymond Van Zutphen. I do believe he's cheering on today. Well, who's at the very back of the field at the moment? Well, it's none other than Gareth Ronda, who is almost 4.3 seconds off of the overall pole time, the 17th of our drivers. We do have an 18th driver here, and that is in the form of none other than Stefan Hutter, who has yet to get a lap on the board. And in terms of penalties that we have coming into this qualifying session, do we have any? And the answer to that is no, we do not. So therefore, everyone is allowed to, of course, go racing today. We do have a few license points for some drivers, but otherwise, nobody has been banned from qualifying today. Hopefully, we don't see that happen over the course of the season. Marcus Hamlin, your pole sitter, makes his way across the line. Wenzel, meanwhile, is just coming onto an off lap, or an outlap we should say, as here he makes his way around the privateer as he rolls away from turn 11 in towards turn number 12. He's still the best part of none other than what is 4 tenths of Hamlin's time. Hamlin has improved on his previous lap. We called him improving to a 2 minute 0.45. So right now Guillaume Hamlin seems to absolutely have Sebring dialed in here, and well, meanwhile it's not going to be the Sim Racing Collective 1-2 today in qualifying. It will be a 3-4 here if Sharp and Southfield finish as they start, but as Sharp comes across that timeline, does he improve this time around? He does. He goes into third there, does Kieran Sharp. But now, with the fact he goes into second, I should say, and he is still 4 tenths off of Guillaume Hamlin. He's still trying to find time as Sharp, and right now that time is not coming his way. 2.5 minutes left on the clock. Not long left at all here, and we do look to Otto Karis meanwhile, the Flying Dutchman driver who currently sat in at 12th place, but he's very tight there if he wants to get himself into the top 10. He's only got to find none other than what is half a tenth. As meanwhile that's a spin, and that is Filip Klamovic going on around there at turn number 5, and he will tow to the pits with the Cooksack crew driver. And well, as we do look to Otto Karis meanwhile carrying on his journey, well, right now he knows if he can find a bit more time he will be inside that top 10, but the Flying Dutchman racing team driver's also got to be aware of the fact the way you qualify today is not necessarily going to dictate where you finish. A good bit of strategy could also be beneficial. And as we saw in Portugal, you do not want to change tyres. You only, where possible, want to put fuel in the car, because fuel goes in first and then the tyres are changed one by one in these Porsche Cup cars. They are not done simultaneously, unlike, say, a GT4 or a GT3 racing machine. There's different regulations for Porsche Super Cup versus IMSA GT3 racing, for example. 2 minutes left on the clock. Who else is on the bubble right now? Can Hamlin raise the bar even higher here? He is currently on that 2 minute 0.45. Although he's not stopping, he is pushing harder and harder. And as he makes his way on around for his Sunset Bend this time, that lovely camera angle, seeing him run all the way to the exit wall. That's the only real elevation change there, is on the outside of the corner. And the answer is going to be as he comes across the timeline this time, he does not improve. But let's improve. I understand the circuit by jumping on board with him as he comes through Genderbeam. So full commitment there, exiting the corner at 178 kilometers an hour, and now into the braking zone for turn at number 3, going as late as possible, holding third gear, apexing at 106 kilometers an hour, now in towards turn number 5, over very far to the right, that really opens up the corner. He's very confident in the direction change capabilities of this car, and as he comes down towards the hairpin, that might be his secret in the fact he's just able to get that rear to settle down. Rear engine rear-wheel drive, of course, these Porsche Cup cars with a 4-litre flat 6 in the rear, over the rear axle, as he breaks his way into the hairpin, well, gets back on the power nice and early there, loading up the rear left tyre, pushing the car around the corner with the weight transfer. Now on towards Fangio. Continues onwards. Kieran Sharp has improved. He's slashed the deficit by 3/4 down to a 10th now as Sharp. So he's finding time. Southfield's up to 3rd. Meanwhile, Liam Giles up into 4th. And Janos Wenzel's fallen all the way back to 5th place. Whereas Hamlin makes his way through none other than Collier and in towards Tower Bend. Going in towards that right hand, onto the brakes he goes, dropping down to second gear, very late apex head, does go a little bit deep. That's going to cost him a 10th as he makes his way up towards Bishop Bend. And indeed, it's only by millimetres there he's gone deep under braking, but it costs him so much in the long term. And more Sharp's coming to the pit lane, so has Southfield. Well, I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, they feel as though the job's done. Do we have overtime in this qualifying session? The answer is we do have overtime available, so therefore as the checker flag comes out, well, Hamlin right now making his way out of turn number 16 on that exit curb. You can see some splashes of water coming on up. And when we look to the exterior view here for the remainder of this lap, can Hamlin go even quicker here, or will he lose out? Well, as we do see a car following in behind, that is none other than the machine of Felix Smoggy down in 10th place at the moment. Well, Giles is currently on a lap, so is Wenzel on his final flying lap. Janos Wenzel trying to find some time, but things are tightening towards the top. Oh, it's hit to the wall there from Hamlin, and that's going to completely scuff a lap. It will invalidate it immediately, but Quillam Hamlin attacking the circuit, and in the end, by going on full attack, it's not quite worked out. And well, understandably, he's now going to have to hope that a 10th is enough, or 3 tenths in the case of Liam Giles, who parks up where it's Jack Southfield. He's in the pit lane, so he can't go any further. Where's Janos Wenzel? He's still trying to make his way around, but we do look to the cracked racing machine of Martin Blankensteiner as Hamlin gets it wrong. Blankensteiner's in 7th for the money, 6 tenths of the overall pole time, and he ducks the pit lane here. He can't do any more, so Blankensteiner will not be going further than the 4th row of the grid. Where is Wenzel, the last driver out there at the moment, as he comes on down through Le Mans now, and the German privateer here hoping he can perhaps move himself back onto that 2nd row of the grid. It's going to be tight, it's going to be close, but coming off that apex there, a little bit of water's being sprayed up. You can see the puddle that's formed on the exit of turn 16 on that curb. It's right towards the end of the curve that they touch it, and well, being so minor, they're able to power through it essentially, but that's the risk, of course. They do have to explore these track limits as he comes in towards Sunset now. A more smooth line in normally means a smooth line out, and it's a fast one at that. The car bouncing around there, having to fight with the suspension being rocked around, twitching left, right and centre. And for Janos Wenzel, in the end, he's not happy with the lap, and you can tell that in the fact he weaves across the line. He does not improve, and that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. It is Quillam Hamlin who takes his first pole position of the season, and joining him on the front row is the championship leader and 3-time winner so far this season, Kieran Sharp. But there's a bucking of the trend in qualifying. Now, can Quillam Hamlin continue that bucking in the race, or will Sharp be able to find a way through? Well, we'll find out that and plenty more when we do head to the grid very shortly to see how they all line up. But as we do wait for that transition, we do say hello to a few more of you, including none other than Garbador, who says the Pogo Cup, let's go. And that's been the running nickname of the Porsche Cup car, given the sensitivity of the suspension for this season, it's the Pogo Cup car. And, well, we can also say hello there to Daynor, who says, let's go, Guillem Menace. And, well, as everybody's almost ready to go to that grid, ladies and gentlemen, well, the wind is high, and here at Sebrings, the stakes could not be higher, because we might be seeing some drivers finding a way to put a dent into Kieran Sharp's championship campaign, albeit we are missing Mr. Nuttall today, and I do believe perhaps recovering. Several drivers, of course, haven't gone straight from the 12 hours of Bathurst straight into doing this today, with this being the official iRacing weekend for the 12 hours of Bathurst. And anyone who is racing today straight after that, I do commend them for the simple fact they have definitely got stamina of steel. But as we do see Average Sharpie there saying Bramling is getting sent, so Kieran Sharp taking a brief moment to let us know what his plan is when he does go green flag racing. Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is how they'll all line up for our one and only race today. Taking pole position, it is going to be Guillem Hamling, and he, for Cracked Racing, we joined on the front row by Kieran Sharp. The Sim Racing Collective Esports driver in the end was only a 10th behind in qualifying. Then it's going to be Jack Southfield, who starts in third there for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, ahead of Liam Giles. The gap between the two of them only was 16 thousandths. The correct racing driver, then we followed up the privateer of Janos Wenzel, who qualified 5th, but 9 he wants even more. 6th alongside him is going to be William Chandler for Cracked Racing, and in the end Chandler only able to achieve 6th, and just about ahead of his teammate Martin Blankensteiner. Mikel Estevez starts in 8th there for ZRT Momo, once again another top 10 start for him, but can he convert it into something special? Behind him it will be an all-German 5th rider grid, Marlin Schwab for DLR FP1, taking that 9th place spot just ahead of Felix Moggy, completing the top 10 there, 9/10 off of the pole time, indeed a whole 10th off of Schwab, but the Cracked Racing driver there in 10th place. In 11th, it's going to be Arn Solono for Kukas Crew, the Swede just ahead of the Flying Dutchman's Otto Keris, and then outside of that top 12, we will see on row at number 7, the combination pair there, Samuel Kraners for DLR FP1 and Filip Kromowicz, who makes his debut today for the Kukas Crew machine. Then we do have Mav Gardner starting in 15th place there, dismal qualifying points for him, and with the 805 drive being joined on the penultimate rider grid by Raymond van Zutphen, and then from the Flying Dutchman, it is going to be Gareth Ronda for Cracked Racing and Stefan Hutter for Cracked Racing right at the back with no lap set, knowing that he's got all the work to do from the very back of the field. Well, ladies and gentlemen, all the drivers gradually make their way into position on this grid, and well, they're all absolutely itching and almost set to go. But as the gridding process right now continues, it won't be too long before we do get ready to see those lights go on, and well, definitely now's not the time to go away. If you haven't been to the bathroom, alternatively, you haven't got yourself a top of liquid refreshment, you haven't got long to do it, you better rush to do so, ladies and gentlemen, because once we do go green flag racing, this race is definitely going to be fiery. And while Hamling is on the right, Sharp is on the left there, and then all the rest of the field tucks in behind in their columns. But of course, this is a standing start. The tyres will come out of their jackets. What jackets they do have, they normally do start cold, and it means here it's going to be just as much a risk of cold tyres and cold brakes into turn number 1 as it is about who is going to be the latest of the late breakers. Martin Blankensteiner a little bit further back, starting 7th place here, right in the midst of the field. He's on the inside into the opening corner, which is always a safe place to be, but of course Gender being Bend offers you the opportunity to attack around the outside. It is one of those corners where you can skin it multiple different ways, and he'll be hoping that he might be able to get it the right way today. But as we are waiting now for Stefan Hutter to potentially take his spot at the back of the grid, although I do believe there's been a technical issue for the 294, and if so, that means we might not be seeing him at all today, which is sad. We've already lost a driver before we've gone green flag racing. More regardless of whether we have 18 or 17 cars, the saying goes that quantity doesn't always guarantee quality, but what we have got a guarantee of here is with our 17 drivers who have made it to the grid so far, there is plenty of quality out there for some superb racing. And well, ladies and gentlemen, we are just waiting for the last car to get into its spot. It will be given the best part of 3 minutes, but in fact 3 minutes are up, and here come the lights. So round number 3, it is going to be 3, 4, firing lights. And it's lights out, and away we go for our 3rd round of the season as Graham Hamlin gets a good start, but Kieran Sharp has the better one as they roar the way down towards turn number 1. Sharp looking around the outside here, going full send as he said he would, and as they roar the way in towards the left-hander, Jack Southwood also trying to get involved there further back. Hamlin taking the tight run to the wall, that's going to keep him safe to the inside into turn 3 as it's gone around there. Is that William Chandler going backwards? I think it is. Chandler's been turned, we'll get a replay of that when we can, but Kieran Sharp does take the lead under the sunshine of Florida as they come in towards turn number 5. Further back, Janos Wenzel hold on Felix Smoggy. Smoggy's had an incredible start. He's already gone from 10th to 6th there for Cracked Racing. The 284 driver absolutely flying, one of the biggest gainers at the start of this race. As meanwhile, Graham Hamlin immediately going back on the attack here versus Sharp going down towards the hairpin. Albeit Sharp puts in the middle of the road, and there's Jack Southwood looking up the inside as they go onto the brakes. So Southwood right now doing everything right, gets his elbows out there, going in from right to left to right, and these two are going to be too wide now, getting ready to go up towards turn number 10. But Southwood gets the better exit out the hairpin, and Hamlin right now absolutely being swarmed here by the Sim Racing Collective drivers. They want to get on top of him as quickly as they possibly can, and well, as you do say, you never want to beat a man when he's down, but in this case they do, as Southwood at the end out breaks himself in towards turn number 10. He goes deep, and that's going to put him down the inside through Collier Bend, but the problem is as he comes up towards town, now he's going to be on the outside here, and that's going to see Liam Charles just back off there. I think the Cracked Racing driver could have perhaps pushed his luck a little bit, but decided not to. So now coming down towards the next section of corners and in towards the bumpy section where the concrete will start to kick off as Mav Gardner, meanwhile, oh, what on earth's happened there between Gardner and I do believe is that Samuel Kramer's he's had contact with. I think it is. The two of them have definitely had a bit of a conversation. We'll have to get a replay of that when we can. Gareth Ronda, meanwhile, has had to tow to the pits off camera, so not quite sure what's happened to him. And there's William Chandler right now for Cracked Racing trying to make some some headway when things have definitely not gone his way whatsoever so far. And the car rolls very deep there. And right now I think he's got significant damage to the car. But meanwhile, back to the front of the field. Sharp is already trying to check out here, and he's decided that he's got a flight to catch. Meanwhile, Hamling and Southfield, they're still nose to tail with Giles, Wenzel, Smoggy. They're all together. And what I do wonder now whether some drivers are already starting to think about the bigger picture, which is that perhaps they now need to start saving a little bit of fuel. Oh no! He's not saving that one. That's going wrong there for Janus Wenzel. Wenzel goes into the barrier, and it triggers a further contact as Mikel Estevez gets caught up there for ZRT Momo. Multiple cars being caught up there. That's disastrous. Going out Sunset Bend, and in the end, several cars were had to tow to the pits as a result of that. And one easy mistake to make, but an absolute nightmare of one. And it's definitely had a big impact on the field. And suddenly the end of lap number one's ended in drama, and we've still got the best part of 57 minutes of it to see even more drama potentially unfold. But after one lap, it's Kieran Sharp who leads by a whole second over Gwilym Hamling. Then we do have Jack Southfield in third, ahead of Liam Giles, the first 6 tenths back. Then it's going to be none other than Felix Smoggy sat in 5th place, ahead of Arne Solono. And Solono's had a reasonable start as well. He's moved all the way from 11th to 6th very gradually, avoiding being caught up in that big altercation. Going out to Sunset only moments ago. Marlon Schwab is 7th, ahead of Otto Caris. And then we do have Samuel Kramers and Mav Garner completing that top 10. As Garner here trying to battle his way around the outside of Ram van Zutphen. Zutphen going defensive there. These two giving each other plenty of racing room and respect as they now make the way up towards what will be at turn number 10. But of course, for Mav Gardner here with better traction, he's going to be able to get ahead, and Zutphen now has got to try and find a way back at him if he can. And the answer is going to be no, he cannot. So therefore, he's just going to watch on here and hope he can get back a little bit later on. But as we do say hello there to Striker 353, who does have a little bit of an upset face there. And I do wonder whether that's in relation to what happened at the end of the opening lap. And therefore, a Driver 2's race definitely being decimated. We do have several cars in the pit lane, including Mikel Estevez's car, which has left the pit lane now to repair work. We also do have Blankensteiner and also Klimovich into the pit lane. And well, they'll be hoping they can get those cars repaired as quickly as they can. But what exactly did happen there? And indeed, what are the big moments from the start of the race? Well, let's take a look back in time and bring you up to speed. So this is how it all started then, and as the lights went out, well, of course, it was Kieran Sharp who definitely had to try and get the better launch, and he did exactly that, because Gwilym Hamling had a reasonable start in the first phase, but Sharp, meanwhile, was able to gain the best part of 2 tenths in there in the run towards turn number 1. Now, as they made the way into the fast left-hander, well, looking a bit further back, it went a bit wrong for one of the drivers in the mid-pack. Mikel Estevez there around the outside, as that was going sideways there for William Chandler. So Chandler did get turns there after a small tap. This is what it looked like on board from Chandler's car as he made his way into the corner, and as I think he turned in tightly there, expecting the number 96 of Martin Blankensteiner to be able to maintain a very tight line, but he had a car as well, so I think Chandler there didn't quite get the call of free wide when he needed it to, so no, he couldn't quite turn as he put the wipers on there to clear his windscreen, and also I think to distract himself and calm himself down. But then we had this for Gareth Ronda moments later on the open lap, and this was coming up towards what was Tower Bend. He lost the rear of the car there coming through Collier Bend, and will Ronda going around and into the barrier there as the car rolled backwards, and at that point it was a tow to the pits. Then we had this happen right towards the end of the lap. This was Janus Wenzel carrying too much speed out to Sunset Bend. The rear of the car slid loose, hit the barrier, and at that point the car stuck in the barrier, propelled off, and well, we did see Martin Blankenstein getting caught up, and then Sonny as well. That was Klimovich, and also we got to see the ZRT Momo number 77 and Mikel Estevez there being collected. This is what it looked like on board from Estevez's car. And you'll see it's gone wrong initially on the left-hand side, but he won't realise until it's too late that Blankenstein has come back across the road, and subsequently that has collected Klimovich, and that's why Mikel Estevez got caught up in all the drama. But back to live racing we come, and as we do, well, we do see there classic cracked on cracked violence, says Johnny Woo, and indeed a few cracked racing drivers there definitely being called out. But right now, back to live racing, and well, the elbows are coming out here between Hamling and Southfield, and Kieran Sharp, meanwhile, definitely not able to break away. He was starting to do so, but suddenly he's not been able to, and meanwhile Jack Southfield now is really going to play the rear gunner role here to try and help Sharp out. Of course, there is the Team's Championship, and there's also the Drivers' Championship, so you do want to try and work with your teammates where you can. But Southfield looks one way than the other. Hamlin right now definitely holding on, but he goes a little bit deep there coming on at the apex of Sunset. And well, right now it's definitely going to be Sunrise there for Southfield as he moves into second place in the number 98. And on the inside, on the right side of the picture, that is Martin Blankensteiner lifting off there to go a lap down, respecting the blue flags. And we'll through Gender being Bend. And that's TSRC 1-2 here. But of course, we've got a long way to go. And we do know that Gwilym Hamling does have the pace over at least a lap as seen in qualifying to win this race. But it's a very different different story over a whole hour. And the thought process he's got to be taken here is that he needs to be thinking more about conserving the car and conserving the tyres. Because remember, the tyres in these Porsche Cup cars, they are expected to use a single set of tyres, presuming the conditions stay stationary and we don't see any rain arrive. We do expect them to use a single set of tyres over the entire race. But these tyres are only good at full attack pace for the best part of around 20 minutes of racing from circuit to circuit. It's a bit dependent, but you could say the window is anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes. And with that, when you do have a whole, hour to go racing at, perhaps protecting the tyres early and being a little bit more conservative towards them is actually going to reward you in the late stage of the race. So Hamlin falling to third isn't necessarily a bad thing right now. His challenge is to stay with the top two if he can, or not let them pull a huge gap on him. If they start to pull a gap, that's when the problems really will begin for him. Meanwhile, we do look to the Cookhouse crew machine of Arnsolono from Sweden, the number 3 driver, who managed to avoid all the drama at the end of the open lap. And he's in the pursuit there of Felix Smoggy as they make their way down towards what would be turn 14 and 15. You see there the splash of waters. They came off the curb on entry for Smoggy in particular. And Arnsolono right now also aware of the fact that Marlin Schwab is trying to come with him as these drivers head towards the end of another tour. And for Marlin Schwab, well, it's definitely been an improvement on his qualifying session start, going from 9th to 6th, but of course, gaining those places where it's got wrong for others, but that's all part of the name of the game. And therefore, Schwab right now, we hope he can just reel that gap into Solono little by little, but it's not going to be the easiest gap to grind on down as he comes towards the end of his run down the Ulmann Straight and knows there's plenty more in store. Samuel Kramers, well, he's on the attack here, trying to chase after Otto Keris as the DLR FP1 driver here in the lovely liveried machine, to be fair to him, chasing after the Flying Dutchman, and Mav Gardner staying with them. And how this has turned around for Mav Gardner so far. Qualifying was not on the pace at all, started 15th and really seems to be struggling in qualifying. Yes, whilst you can say he's gained places as a result of retirement, he's finding some pace now, and actually his pace is proven to be the equivalent of what is almost the 5th place driver on Solono. So I think Gardner in the end just needed a bit more time to get himself acclimatised, perhaps not having as much time to practice as he would have liked, but either way, well, I can tell you one thing right now, Gardner is looking threatening. But also speaking of threatening, here's Sharp and there's Southfield behind. As we look back from the rear of your leading driver, and for the number 23 driver at the moment, well, Southfield is definitely putting on the pace. Last lap, he took the best part of a whole 4/10 a second out of the leader. Kieran Sharp, meanwhile, maintaining sensible laps and definitely keeping the pace high. But Jack Southfield wants to push it even further here, and I wonder how much the narrative is that Southfield wants the lead of the race and wants to try and then get everyone to drive to his tempo, which may be much faster. Perhaps he feels more comfortable at the thought of driving at full pace and then letting the tyres work it out towards the end. Albeit Kieran Sharp definitely right now not wanting to let that happen as they come out of Tower Bend, but instead coming back to us. Well, now for number 23, the gap is only 2/10. Through Bishop they come. Will Southfield look for the move here? And the answer is going to be no. Rolling off that apex then, and Southfield close, but not quite close enough to make a move stick. But of course, through the Ulmann Straight, that's where he will probably go for it if the gap is still 2/10 there. And we're coming out the corner. That was a poor run out of Laborde from Sharp. And Southfield now, well, if he doesn't go for it this time, I wonder when he will go for it. In fact, he's in a bump draft there and helped Sharp on his way, so decides not to fight it initially. But of course, if Southfield does start to feel as though Sharp is holding him up and is putting a risk of Hamlin catching up, he might say otherwise. They go around the final corner. But Raymond Van Zutphen, meanwhile, has had a bit of an instant off camera as our leaders come towards the end of a lap. And well, Sharp makes his way on down there, weaving from side to side here. And I think he's trying to send a message to Southfield, which is thank you very much. I'm okay as they come in towards turn 1. But definitely a bit of an oddity there. As further back, Felix Smoggy, well, he's got the grind pressure of Arnsolono. Now Solono goes in towards Gender Bean. We jump on board the front bumper of your number 3 car. And we're running a bit wide there. Doesn't want to keep doing that because he'll pick up an instant point for that off track. And when you get to 17, of course, it is a drive-through penalty. Track limits here at Sebring, they are quite polite. They are not too aggressive, but understandably you don't want to make any mistakes. But let's not make the mistake of missing a change of the race lead, because there is Southfield. He's going to be making his way around the outside there versus Sharp. Sharp going defensive in towards the hairpin. So therefore the elbows come out between these two. They both go a little bit deep, touching doors, and going onwards towards Fangio Bend right now. Well, Sonny Hamlin's going to look at this and think he can get involved, but Southfield does clear his teammate, and Jack Southfield's now your leader, at least for now. But coming down towards turn number 10, well, Southfield goes defensive, and Sharp says, fine, you want it, let's go play. And rolling the way up towards Tower Corner right now. Well, these drivers definitely pushing each other, but it will bring Hamlin in back into this race. And, well, the cracked racing driver at this point is going to be looking and figured out, do I get involved? Well, Kieran Sharp then dives up the inside in towards 13. They both both touch again, but they both give each other racing room. Indeed, respect being shown amongst teammates in. The number one rule of racing, of course, is not to take out your teammate. The number two rule is you need to beat your teammate. Or is it the other way around? I always forget. But either way, those are the two fundamental rules of motorsport as they are sim racing. And Kieran Sharp right now back into lead. And, well, there goes Salford diving up the inside. He just decides to plant it right down the inside of Le Mans Bend. And, well, that's definitely a very committed move there. And Sharp had to back off essentially. Went to turn in and suddenly discovered, hold up a second, I can't. There's the best part of 1.4 tonnes of Porsche right there. They're now coming in towards sunset. We can see Hamlin now only 3 tenths behind. And Sharp on the outside here. Will he go for the switchback? He will. He'll cut it back to the inside there. And Southfield doesn't have a response. And Sharp just about squeezes in. We're coming across that timeline. And we jump on board looking down over the front of the 351, the third player in this game. And we're on to the next lap. And well, the rate of knots that these guys are pushing at right now, understandably, this is only going to up the tempo even more as they roll on around for agenda B in, and it's going to be Sharp defending, but that's going to be Southfield on the outside, keeps 2 wheels just in the white lines, and Hamlin now looking around the outside. This isn't going to work for Gwilym Hamlin. He's just going to have to wait instead. So from left into right into left, these drivers absolutely pushing each other every step of the way. It's a brilliant battle, but for Gwilym Hamlin, does he just watch this? Does he be a spectator here rather than get involved? And I think by being a spectator, he actually buys himself a bit more of a comfort factor by comparison. But here we go. Southfield now go defensive as Sharp tries to go around the outside of him, underbraking into the hairpin. It's not going to work out this time. They're constantly pushing each other and trying to essentially one-up each other. And Hamlin here, well, if he gets any closer at this point, I think he'll be touching the rear of Sharp's car at the moment. And we want to keep doing that because that'll be a 4X. And do that enough times, you'll very quickly find yourself a drive through. But Hamlin looks up the inside into 10. No, he can't go for it there. But he's definitely threatening now. And Kieran Sharp's going to start looking forward as much as he's going to be looking backwards. That's not a nice place to be when you're the middleman in this group, as we ride on board and look back from the rear of your race leader. As they're coming on round through the corner, and Jack Southwood right now runs a little bit wide, and well, Sharp follows him, and Hamlin's going to be looking around the outside here through Bishop. And well, what's next? Is it going to be a move up the inside here? Is he a religious man, Gwilym Hamlin? Because if so, he'll be praying he can get it done, and the answer is no. He gets squeezed slightly at the apex. Sharp just turns in and says to Hamlin, you're going to need to back out. You're not fully alongside, and Hamlin does so, does not keep his nose in it. And we're now on to the Allman Straight here, and with all this fighting, well, right now, these three, they are lapping at a rate of 1 second a lap slower compared to fourth place Felix Smoggy, so they might be bringing fourth and fifth into this gradually. Keep in mind that fourth and fifth right now are a little bit further back by comparison. I mean, it's definitely growing with intrigue, this one, as they roll the way around. But 15 minutes this race has almost been complete. They've still got plenty of time to go. And right now, well, none of these three are going anywhere apart from each other. There's Felix Smoggy in the rear of your picture, still bringing on Solano along for the ride. Gap between the two of them sitting at a rather respectable 8.5 tenths. And it's a further 2 seconds back to Marlon Schwab. But looking through Samuel Kramer's here, as we do see the DLR-FP1 driver bringing Mav Gardner and William Chandler along the ride. Otto Karis is only 1.1 seconds ahead, so therefore we could have a four-way fight growing here for 7th place if Kramer is allowed to push the envelope. Mav Gardner and William Chandler, 2 Britons behind. Well, Gardner, of course, had a miserable qualifying session, but he's found race pace. William Chandler had a miserable start to this race by pointing backwards on the exit of turn number 1. The 43 driver here wants to get things done when he can and get on the recovery drive. That's going to be a problem for him, because of the simple fact that he's got to try and pick his way past Mav Gardner, who understandably, he may not be the fastest driver out there, but he is one of the strongest defenders out there based on what we've seen from him over the last couple of years, whether it be in the MX-5 series or the GT4s. But down onto the brakes, and Chandler looking around the outside there, takes his conventional racing line, trying to just offset Mav Gardner a little bit. But right now, the lightning machine, giving the little lightning symbol on the bottom left-hand side of the rear bumper, doesn't quite find its way on past. It's trying to be shocking at the moment, and well, in fact, Chandler here now on the inside of Fangio, and Gardner backs out entirely. They lets it go, so Mav Gardner decides there's no point fighting at the moment. I might as well let him go and let him bring us forward. Well, I think it's a tactical call there from Gardner. It's the right one, but now he's got to try and stay with Chandler, who'll go hunting after Samuel Kramers and then Otto Karis. But as we come back to leaders here, your top 3 still nose to tail, putting on the show at the front, says Dave Barnes, and indeed they are. And right now the 2 TSRC machines definitely looking as though they've shared some paint, albeit you wouldn't be able to know because they've just swapped the paint from one car to the other. Like for like liveries on the cars, of course, and Gwilym Hamlin in the all-white machine, still waiting just that little bit further behind. But now it's going to be a move here from Sharp, looking onto the inside. So Kieran Sharp decides to go for it this time, switching things on around. Well, is this all about position at the moment? He's on that inside, very close to the barrier there. The car being jolted around. Too wide on exit there. And well, now making the way down towards turn number 1. And well, Gwellam Hamling thinks about it again, but he's 2 attempts back. He can't get involved. And Jack Southfield will have a nose ahead here into Genderby and Ben. Sharp goes around the outside, or does he? No, he cuts back in here and falls back into the formation. And Hamling stays right behind him. But how long will the Cracked Racing driver want to play third place, given how close it's getting? And the gap to Felix Smoggy has in fact gone back up now by half a second. So that previous lap, well, the fact they didn't fight as hard, this trio, well, now they're able to return to their normal racing pace. But understandably, as soon as they fight, they are losing half a second a lap. When they don't fight, they're gaining half a second a lap. So that is a big pendulum swing. That's me or Felix Smoggy under pressure here from Ancelano, who is right in the draft. And well, I wouldn't be surprised here if the Cookhouse crew driver is going to go to the outside. Yes, he does. He's going to look for the move into the hairpin here. Smoggy right now just needs to extend the corner as much as he can in the Polaroid car. And, well, they come out too wide. And, well, Solono's going to make a magical move happen here, because going around the outside of the hairpin is not easy, but he's got confidence in the car. He's using those tyres as much as he possibly can through Fangio. Coming up behind him, that's Marlon Schwab, 1.6 seconds back. Solono's still trying to go around the outside, using all the road. And in it, he just goes a little bit deep. But can he stay on the inside here for Wes Collier Ben? Yes, he can. Can he stay all the way to the outside now? Tower, not quite. Fighting that's going to be too much a risk. He would lose out in doing so. So Ancelano bearing his fangs, as in the end, it does pressure Smoggy into a mistake. So it is going to be a big error there from Felix Smoggy, which will bring him right back to Ancelano after Solono's own error coming out of 11. And we're in towards Le Mans. It's going to be right now held stationary as further back, Mikel Estevez in the fully repaired car behind Janos Venzo, who is also taking repair work. And these two drivers now pushing each other down towards turn number 1. And well, the ZRT Momo driver wants to try and find his way in. Can he do so? Not quite, at least for now. But back to the front, it's free wide. Here's Graham Hamlin, goes up the inside of both Southern and Sharp. And will free wide there into Sunset. They're going to be free wide all the way through. Yes, they are. But at some point, it's going to be contact. And that's going to send Kieran Sharp spinning on around. And Sharp goes on around, but the battle still continues at the front. And we can see Gwellam Hamlin there on the inside. He's made it work. Free wide didn't quite work out for the TSRC drivers, but it definitely worked out for Cracked Racing's driver, who now leads this race. And well, we're still 40 minutes to go in this one or so. Gwellam Hamlin moving into lead, and now can he break away with it? That's the challenge that confronts him. Was the man who started on pole. He lost it early on, but now he's got it back. And can he convert it into victory, or will Jack Southfield keep him honest? Kieran Sharp, meanwhile, has got himself recovered, albeit with that small tap there, dropping down to 6th place, but no more damage than that, so he's in a relatively clean car. But now he has got a huge gap to try and bring back him down to the best part of 9.5 seconds to Gwellam Hamlin, and he's going to have to go some. But does he? Given the fact, of course, the more he pushes, the more tyre life he strips off the car, beyond having already stripped some tyre life off for the big slide. Well, we are going to be taking a look back at some of those moments very shortly. And in fact, we take a look back at also some instances of drivers, starting off with none other than what did happen only moments ago for our driver of Raymond van Zutphen. So this was Van Zutphen for the Flying Dutchman, make his way on around in towards turn number 15. And as he did so, what went wrong here for the 84? The car slid slightly on him, and in the end, it was one of those slow spins. They're the worst ones, so you know you can't stop it. He tried to stop it as much as possible. The car just simply said, no, around we go. And then we had this only moments later for Kieran Sharp, and this, of course, was the big moment. Free wide into the corner. He was right in the middle, and as he came on around, well, it's very hard to tell from that camera angle. Can we get an on-board of Kieran Sharp to see whether there was contact between himself and Southfield? I think we can. This is the dashboard, so this is going to be an ideal view. Keep an eye on the front left. And the tiniest tap there, a double contact in, so Sharp initially making contact to Southfield, and that upset Southfield's car, but then the contact essentially was followed up by a hit of one of the bumps in the road, going over one of those concrete seam transitions. That sent Sharp's car back to Southfield's, but at that point the rear was unsettled, and that's what sent Kieran Sharp's on around. An innocent incident there, and I think it'd be treated as a race incident if it was to go to the stewards, but understandably Kieran Sharp coming off the worst there, and Gwellam Hamlin being on the inside, being able to safely get away with that one just about. But whilst we've been looking back at that, we've had a change of lead. Jack Southfield now has taken the lead back from Gwellam Hamlin, albeit Hamlin now going on the attack versus him, coming up in towards turn number 3, making the way in towards that left-hander. And right now Jack Southfield holding on as, well, Taylor Mailer there saying, did he lose the car? Was there contact with regards to Kieran Sharp? So hopefully we've answered that question based on the cameras that we have available here in the commentary booth. And also we do say hello there to Dan Solo, who says, classic TSRC driver. Indeed, the banter absolutely coming in thick and fast there in the YouTube chat, and good to have you with us. But as we do see see Hamlin looking around the outside. Southfield going defensive here. And, well, this may be an endurance race, but right now these guys are definitely turning it into a very bitey and fighty sprint. Albeit we're not complaining about that. There's plenty of entertainment here today, even with what happened on the opening lap, splitting the field quite significantly, and Hamlin looking around the outside. But at this point, of course, the more and more they do fight, the more and more they do strip time off each other, and lap times, of course, match into these guys, running third and fourth for Smoggy and Solano, and Marlon Schwab still trying to stay with them, but Kieran Sharp is on a mission to catch up, and with that scratch damage to the front left-hand side, I don't think there's going to be any suspension damage. There might be a small amount of bodywork damage. In terms of what that's going to cost him time-wise, probably only about a tenth or two on the longest of straights. It was a very gentle tap, to be fair, and normally those don't cost you anything with regards to damage to the car. Sometimes there's no repair work required in the pit lane, although I suspect he will have his fast repair active in case he needs to use it. But back to the leaders then as they make their way onto the Allman Straight, and this time Southfield puts the car off centre, not quite on the racing line initially, and then he finally gets it together. I wonder if that was a little bit of power oversteer there coming out of Le Mans, because of the fact that car definitely did not look too composed. But Hamlin in the tow, looking up the inside. And for Gwilym Hamlin, well, this is going to be a classic move, no doubt about it. And, oh, well, he goes on through. Southfield doesn't fight it too hard. He looks for the cutback instead. And he's going to pick up the greater momentum. He'll slingshot his way out of the final quarter. But now he puts himself on the outside for the opening bend of the next lap. And, well, now can Hamlin find a way to hold him there? Or will Southfield do the special? We'll just go all the way around the outside and still maintain the pace. It looks like, in fact, Gwilym Hamlin is going to get the job done this time around. Hold on. But Southfield continues to knock on his door. And, well, a little bit of touch between the two of them. But it's all fair in love and war. And, well, they stay as they are. Gwilym Hamlin back into the lead. Felix Smoggy, well, he's currently in third. Solona and Schwab have caught up. And, in fact, you can see the fact that Marlon Schwab has brought that gap down from 1.8 seconds to 9 tenths. But a little bit of power oversteer there coming out of turn number 5. He's pushing so hard as the 364 driver. And right now, for Marlon Schwab, I think he's having to drive on the limit to catch up to third and fourth. But the problem is, on the limit, is where he's at risk of making some small errors. The DLI FP1 driver, who we know can be very consistent when he's in the groove, he's not quite in the rhythm at the moment. And that's the problem that's confronting him. As Mel Solano here looking once again to the outside, going up towards none other than Collier Bend and into that braking zone. But it's not going to work out. Smoggy going defensive and now rolling the way through from right into left. I think Cracked Racing driver from Germany just simply pitching his tent and making sure there's no way in at the end. But back to the leaders. They come off of Tower Corner. Hamlin was very slow out of that bend. That brought Southfield very close to him. There's no change between them as, meanwhile, all the way down the order, here is the battle for 12th place. Still going on between Janos Wenzel and Mikel Estevez. And Estevez right now just running on the rear bumper there of Wenzel. And I wouldn't be surprised if they both feel as though they're equivalent on pace, that they're not fighting. And for Estevez in particular, this is all about fuel saving. But meanwhile, speaking now about saving things, it's going to be a bit of a deep run there from what was Wenzel into at the opening bend, and Estevez in the end does not quite manage to capitalise on that. I think he was caught out by that one, the Spaniard. But speaking of saving things elsewhere, Samuel Kramers has just lost out. He's dropped behind Mav Gardner, and what exactly has happened to Samuel Kramers? Well, ladies and gentlemen, here's a replay to explain. So this was coming in towards the opening bend, chasing after William Chandler at the time. And he came through that left-hander. He ran out very wide initially. So that was the first mistake that Samuel Kramers made. And then a bit later on the lap, he had another mistake. And this was coming up into Tower. And well, Mav Gardner's going to find his way on past it, I suspect. And in the end, Kramer's getting all out of sorts there. I think it was a twitch at the apex. We didn't quite see exactly what happened, but Mav Gardner was able to sneak his way on through. And back to live racing we go. And as we do, well, right now, Samuel Kramers comes on down the pit lane. I wonder what exactly this is for. Is this because he had a bit of a moment somewhere? And in fact, I think he has had a moment at the end of that lap. And we do have a very quick replay to fill you in on that. So this was him chasing after Mav Gardner in towards Sunset. And as he made his way around the corner, big bump in the road, tapped the inside barrier as well there with the front right side of the car. And that's what sent him sideways, plus the bump in the concrete slab. And well, the DLR FP1 driver opting then to come into the pit lane, knowing that he has scuppered those tyres. And therefore he's going to give him a chance to cool them down rather than to continue to push them. Keep in mind, of course, that these tyres do go through multiple successive heating cycles. The aim is that you don't want to slide on the tyre. If you do, you are going to trigger excess wear. And that's the thing about these Porsche Cup cars compared to their predecessor, the 992.1, which didn't have ABS or traction control, no electronic aids whatsoever, whereas these cars do have them. at the initiation level, it's a much easier car to drive in terms of a gentleman driver can now drive this car without the fear of locking up the brakes or overspinning the wheels. But you now have at the professional level the problem, which our drivers will be confronting today, which is you don't want to trigger the electronics wherever possible. Because if you trigger the ABS, what it will do essentially for the uninitiated anti-lock braking system, essentially says too much brake force has been applied, reduced braking force, and that means that suddenly, no matter how hard the driver stamps the brake pedal, it actually lifts off the brakes a little bit and the car is allowed to roll deeper into a braking zone. But that causes a sliding effect on the tyres, and that, particularly for the front tyres, is going to trigger excess heat and excess wear. Meanwhile, traction control rise, of course, if you're a little bit too eager with the throttle, if the TCS system kicks in, it just completely kills the throttle to the rear tyres or significantly kills it, and then suddenly you're not getting anywhere near the exit speed you would normally have. Albeit that does not increase tyre wear, it just means that you're wearing down the gap you have to the car behind. Handling right now seems to be getting everything together here and avoiding that ABS as much as humanly possible. If we do look back from the rear of the 3-5-1, right now Jack Southfield there close, but not close enough to make a move. But I think as we're getting closer towards that halfway point, these two drivers right now thinking more and more about strategy. Of course, Southfield does have one advantage here over Hamling, which is being the number 2 car. He can fuel save, lifting and coasting into those braking zones, and also on the straights he can afford, of course, to not be at 100% throttle, but perhaps be at 90% throttle at certain points, just to be able to conserve what might be 1 or 2 litres, and 1 or 2 litres saved in the pit lane can be the equivalent of a whole second being made, as that's going to be a dive at the inside, in towards turn number 10 there. Jack Southfield right now not playing the game of strategy, he's playing the game of full-on tactics, and with brute force there going up the inside. Hamling now trying to go back around the outside to the inside there, but he just backs off in the nick of time. I think he was thinking about it and then decided, no, we're only going to end up in woes there if I try and force the issue in towards turn number 12. Runs out wide coming out of Tower Bend, but Graham Hamling right now definitely very eager to try and get this back. As we do say hello there to Mogzilla, who says, just hope everyone gets round safely. And well, indeed, we had a bit of difficulty for some drives earlier on with that huge shunt out Sunset Bend that collected 3 cars, but at least for now, everyone continued to go absolutely safely on around here, and we're very happy to have you with us, Mogzilla, and I hope you're doing well. But as we do see our leaders making their way towards the end of what is lap number 14, meanwhile, coming back to Felix Moggy, in a 4-car pack here that has been brought together. Your third place man right now has got Solono, Schwab and Sharp with him. And well, if you're Kieran Sharp at the back of this group, you're thinking, right, I've got a huge haul of cars to try and get myself past, or I can then go chasing after the 2 guys I really belong with, at least based on his pace we've seen. But the point is he's got to pick his way past this group. Now, do you come into the pits early here to get yourself out of the pack? Well, one decides to do so. That is on Solono, who opts to do so. So a smart call there from the Swedish driver. He's going to go for the undercut strategy here by pitting 1 lap before the halfway point. It does mean, of course, his second stint will feel a little bit longer. Southfield, meanwhile, still keeping Hamlin behind. These two going on to another lap. Hamlin can't find his way through. And then we do come back to the fight for third through to 5th now. Solono, of course, off strategy. Now for opt-in, I suspect just to simply now see whether he can jump these guys by waiting for them to fight, as meanwhile he'll have a clear track in front of him. Now if he is playing the right strategy, we suspect he'll only take fuel. We're keeping an eye on that in the pit lane as well. Out my Conte booth window, and with Samuel Ukrainians who pitted earlier, he only put fuel in the car. It was a 22.12 second stationary stop, and we are expecting our drives to be around 20 to 25 seconds, as Arn Solono in the end leaves the pit lane now. 21.77 second stop stationary, and end to end the pit lane he does spend a grand total of 53 seconds there. For the Swede, it comes out in clear track, and that means for the Kukas crew driver now, it's all going to be about pumping in the laps. He's got to get those tyres back up to temperature. He won't lose as much temperature as he would on a fresh set of tyres, but he will lose about 10 to 15 degrees centigrade on the compound, and that means this lap at least is going to require him just to ease the tyre back in. If he overheats it now, he is going to significantly take away its lifespan and make it very hard for him to get that tyre back under control for the next couple of laps. But that's his game. If he can get these tyres warmed up gradually, he will now be able to go full attack, and he'll have to see if he can leap ahead of the fight of third to 5th and get himself into a position whereby he clears it entirely. But meanwhile, for your top 2, well, these two right now definitely not thinking about preserving the tyres as much as they're preserving some brilliant battling for us to enjoy. And indeed, we've been absolutely spoiled here today so far. Christmas has come early and it's only the end of February. But hitting towards turn at number 17 they come, and Hamlin looking up the inside. But again, this is more about posing a threat rather than making one. out of the corner and going onto another lap. Neither driver deciding to defect to the pit lane at the moment. I think they're going to stay out there for as long as the fuel tank can. Meanwhile, into the pit lane comes Marlin Schwab. He was, at the time, running in full place. He decides to react to Arn Solono's pit stop. There is Solono on screen, making his way through Bishop Bend at the moment. So you've got a rough idea of where he is, as Schwab will be shortly parking up. And, well, Otto Karas will split the two, and he will go on to 5th place here. Of course, he's yet to pit, your number 79 driver, but he's had a bit of a quiet race so far for the Flying Dutchman. He's been a bit lonely there in the 7th place in the strategy stakes, or 5th on the road, and he'll be hoping to just keep putting these laps together and not make any mistakes from this point all the way to the very end. Meanwhile, a driver who did make mistakes earlier on, here's Raymond van Zutphen, and well, the Flying Dutchman driver right now definitely running on what we believe is an effective 9th place as he carries on his journey and coming around. Does he come into the pit lane this time? No, he does not. He carries all the speed, albeit not as confident there to carry as much speed to the exit wall. Not all drivers are, and that will cost him a couple of attempts in the run on down because he's not min-maxing his speed. But to be fair, he's avoided making a mistake. That's the first and most important part of the job, as he is yet to pit. From him, we come down to Mikel Estevez versus Janos Wenzel. These are two drivers who have pitted previously, but do keep in mind that they came into the pits after the damage they picked up at the end of lap 1. Therefore, they have yet to take the strategic stop. They cannot get to the end of the race based on the fuel they took if they did take a splash and dash in that first pit stop, because the fuel tanks are limited, the amount of fuel they can take, and therefore they cannot overfuel the car to intentionally make that stop happen prematurely. That does create a pit window of some sorts, which normally is about 20 minutes into the race. Oh, that's a big side loose in Janos Wenzel, and it happens again for the privateer driver. It went wrong on the exit of that corner right at the start of the race, and it's gone wrong now midway through the race. And the 313 driver, you could see the rear of the car just bounce loose there as he went close to the exit wall. And in the end, rather than getting caught with the wall this time, he was able to get away from it. But unfortunately, the car was not able to stay pointed in a straight line. And the German driver, well, he's going to be absolutely fuming with himself there, and that bumpy road surface catching him out. Meanwhile, we're not going to be caught out by missing these, because Jack Southfield and Gwilym Hamling are into the pit lane. So are Smoggy and Sharp. They've all coming in. And as they've all made the way on in, well, what about Otto Karas? Here he is. I suspect he's coming in very shortly. That fuel tank won't be going much longer. Marlin Schwab, who has pitted, by the way, has come out ahead of Arn Solono. So therefore, Schwab was able to get the job done. Despite the undercut being achieved by the Swedish driver, it has not worked out for him. He's right behind. So that's an important bit of narrative. But now it's pit stop season as we look to the blimp camera. And we're waiting to see who's going to be the first car to move. As the blimp gradually makes his way around here and reveals Gwilym Hamling being held. And Jack Southfield a bit further back behind. And they're hidden behind the terrace. But you'll see him move very shortly as the Gurney terrace there is removed from screen, and Jack Southfield retakes the lead. But as he does so, Gwilym Hamling is right with him. Kieran Sharp, meanwhile, also follows. Sharp there taking a very short stop by comparison. And where is Felix Smoggy? He leaves the pit lane. Where is Marlin Schwab? He's still making his way down the start-finish straight. And well, I think Felix Smoggy is going to come back out in 4th. And Kieran Sharp has jumped ahead of him. And Marlin Schwab will be the best part of 3 seconds behind. So that is the chop and change on the strategy. As we do see Southfield make his way on past, so did there none other than Sharp and Smoggy. Well, Marlin Schwab has jumped ahead of Arn Solono. He has held on to that 5th place, despite Solono's attempt at the undercut strategy. But meanwhile, the top 4 who went an extra lap, they have all stayed ahead of this pair. And Jack Southfield right now has retaken the lead, albeit only by 3 tenths, if that. And Kieran Sharp, meanwhile, has leapt ahead of Felix Smoggy, but Sharp's pit stop was the best part of a whole second faster by comparison. In fact, 1.3 seconds faster than Felix Smoggy's, a whole second faster than Gwilym Hamling's and Jack Southfield's. So therefore, either he's been saving a lot of fuel at the start of the race, or he's intentionally underfueled the car. And his game plan right now, this is a double-edged sword. If we believe what he might have done is true, he might right now be pushing at maximum attack to get to the back of the top 2, but then he has to fuel save for a good portion of the race in order to give himself enough fuel to go on the attack right at the end. If he's doing that, it's a risk, because if it doesn't pay off and he can't get close enough, alternatively, what he's preying on perhaps is that these two start to fight. Then what will happen is we will see probably within the next 10 to 15 minutes that Sharp's pace will drop by a couple of attempts on that, because he has to start coasting more in order to make sure he doesn't start to splutter towards the end of the race, at which point, of course, these two will break away and it will be a fight for third between Sharp and Smoggy, and it could quickly transition as quick as that. But coming down the Ullman Straight right now, with Southfield and Hamling still pushing each other to the absolute limit. And Jack Southfield, in fact, took a lot of fuel in the pit lane compared to Hamling, so therefore he was not saving at all. Hamling, meanwhile, taking significantly less fuel and rolling away and around. Southfield will take that lead back for now, but Hamling right now, I think he's really playing the game. And to me, to you here, he's not thinking about leading this race. Right now, he's thinking about leading it on the final lap, which I think would be the right call, to be fair to him. as they come down towards turn number 1, well, we need to take a look back in time for where it all went wrong for Janos Wenzel. And this was the second time that Sunset Ben called him out. And how exactly did it catch him out this time? Made his way out the corner, the rear of the car just cutting loose there as he made his way onto the raised portion of concrete just towards the tyre barrier, went spinning to the wall, and in the end for Janos Wenzel, it all fell apart. The on-board might explain a bit more. Let's listen in. And you see the car twitching there from one side to the other. He had to overcorrect it initially. And, well, the German driver in the end with that spin. A very uncharacteristic one there. It looks like he got it all done, but the car said no. And unfortunately for Janos Wenzel, well, Sunset Ben definitely has been the bane of existence here today for the German driver in the US of A. But back to your leaders, and now Hamlin on the inside here to the outside of Cunningham he goes. Onto those brakes, and will nose ahead at the apex, but the problem is the quarter tapers off so rapidly on exit as you get ready to go into Collier Bend that Hamlin can't extend it all the way around. He'd really need Southfield to blunder that apex and lose a lot more apex speed, but Jack Southfield's never going to give up that position when he's on the inside at turn number 10. It's not a corner you normally go around the outside at, but you can see this fighting has brought Kieran Sharp already a whole 1.5 seconds closer. So Sharp is moving quickly here. He knows he's running out of time if he wants to catch up to them to give himself the best possible comfort towards the end of the race. And well, as he continues that endeavour, he's left Milik Smoggy behind. He's already put 4/10 of a second over Smoggy on this lap. The 284 driver right now, I think, will be very happy to be clear of these two, Schwab and Solono, who in turn, I think, are now in a position whereby they might be more focused on the fight for 5th, or can Schwab find a way to bring Smoggy into their battle? Well, if he can do so, it'd definitely be a turn for the books there, but 3 seconds to close down. Whilst it's a small gap, it is a lot of time. Leaders going side by side, coming out to the final quarter. Here they go then, on to the next lap, on to lap number 19. Hamlin on the left of your pitch on the outside now as the camera turns the other way round. And we're in towards the opening braking zone they go. Southfield there. And while these two still fight each other, you'd think they'd rehearse this the number of times they go too wide, but this just goes to show you how confident they are in racing each other, and also the amount of respect between the two of them, which is absolutely admirable. And we're not going to see too wide battling like this very often, as in the end it does get a little bit close there. And Southfield ran slightly deep, and Hamlin always went deep with him, but Southfield will carry on around the outside. And now Hamlin tucks back in behind as they get ready to go in towards the hairpin. And Southfield holding on here, albeit I think this is really going to come down to who's the leader going on to last lap, and then subsequently who really is going to be the one who's going to go in the to me, to you, and break the rhythm. But gap to Kieran Sharp now down to 1.2 seconds, and I also would wonder at this point where perhaps Southfield is intentionally fighting a little bit with Hamlin, more than perhaps he needs to, in order to bring his teammate into the mix. The reason for this, of course, in the Teams Championship, TSRC Esports will want a 1-2. They will not want it to be a 1-3, and therefore they ideally do need the other man up there rather than him having to do it all the hard way. Solono looking for a move up the inside of Schwab in towards Cunningham. That's not going to work initially, but Solono right now definitely starting to bear his fangs a little bit as we do right on board. Looking at number 3 driver here, and will that big chip in the windscreen there really marking things up. Thankfully that's not on the camera. Big twitch sideways there from Schwab. Power oversteer coming out of Tower, and more tyres now starting to feel a little bit worn at this point in the race. Keep in mind that when they do go beyond the 20-minute lifespan of the tyres, it's not as though the tyre completely falls off the proverbial cliff that you hear about a lot in series such as Formula 1, for example. It's just that suddenly the tyre offers significantly less grip, but if you're able to respond and react well to the tyre, you can still extract good lap times out of it. There's a notable pace decline from what is the original 20-minute window on the tyre versus the latter stage of the tyre. And well, as long as they keep the tyre life somewhere above 40%, they'll be okay. But Solono here getting a huge run. He's going to look up the inside here. He dives on in. And as they come in towards Sunset right now, Solono there saw the door was open. He's not going to waste this opportunity. Schwab gives him all the space and time of day. So he wants to go for the switchback here down towards turn number 1. Albeit as we now look back from the rear of the Swedish car, the Kukas crew machine up into 5th there. Lovely move from Solono. And well, definitely one of the highlights of his race so far. And now can Marlon Schwab respond? Solono goes a little bit deep initially through 1, but it's all part of that late apex in the end, and he is able to keep Schwab at bay to the distance of 2.5 tenths. But it could all change at any moment's notice. These two, of course, 10 seconds ahead of Otto Karis. And Karras right now significantly further back. There is your Flying Dutchman driver in 7th place. And well, right now he'll need a bit of an incident or plenty more fighting between 5th and 6th if he wants to try and take that place before the end of the race. Now in the battle for Mikel Estevez versus Janos Wenzel, of course the spin for Janos Wenzel has been that Estevez has moved into 11th place. Now very lonely 11th for ZRT Momo. But to be fair, still carrying on. Mav Gardner is his next target. And how's he doing on pace versus Gardner? The answer to that question is going to be he's equal to Mav Gardner. He is not surpassing him. Here's your 10th place man on camera, meanwhile, in the 8:05, and he's got a 7.6 second gap to William Chandler, who has gradually dropped him over the distance. Chandler being on screen now in the number 23 after his spin on the open lap, in the 43 I should correct myself and say. Well, after that spin on the open lap, things have gone quite a bit backwards for him. However, he's still here to win and chasing after Samuel Kramers, and he is catching up to Kramers at the rate of 7/10 on average a lap. So he will be with him within the next 10 minutes or so, it would seem. So William Chandler, definitely a man to watch out for. We'll keep an eye on him. From him, we come back to the front because your top three now almost fully together. Kieran Sharp is winning a second of the top two. He won't be picking up the best of Slipstream at the moment. He needs to get within half a second to really feel the benefits of the toe. Whereas a 1 second gap, he'll feel a slight benefit. Southfield goes defensive here. Well, Hamlin's going to try and go around the outside this time. And goes out very wide there beyond the white lines, which you're allowed to do, although you pick up a lot of marbles there as the marbles are gradually blown out wider and wider as the race goes on. Right away out the corner, Kieran Sharp, they're so close to the exit wall. Well, that shows you how much he's trying to push to catch up. We understand why that's going to cost him some time, as now Hamlin going around the outside, but Southwood going defensive here, and this is going to buy Sharp some more opportunities to get closer. But on to the final 20 minutes of the race and they come. And we're Hamlin now back to the inside in towards turn number 3. And Southwood's got no response to this other than to let it go. Hamlin back into lead of this race. I can see Kieran Sharp then now very much in the group. He's been given the opportunity to become part of it. And now can he make the most of it to perhaps make it a 4th win of the season and 4 in a row, become the only driver to take wins up to and including at the midway point of the season. But as we do say hello there to Nick Alvarado at Sim Racing, who's cheering on none other than Willie. I think that's William Chandler he might be cheering on. Meanwhile, Hamlin holding on for now. And well, the Luxembourgish driver here from Cracked Racing still defending, but now he's got 2 TSRC machines attacking him. And well, 2 is normally better than 1, but not in this situation. 2 teammates versus yourself. What do you do in this situation? Well, you don't normally give up the space there going around the outside to Jack Southfield, and in the end, it all goes wrong for Graham Hamlin coming through that corner. Jack Southfield goes around the outside at Cunningham Bend, and what he shows you can do it. And Graham Hamlin, I think in the end, was absolutely pinned to the apex there. Southfield did that, literally dancing around the number 351. That was poetry in motion there, and Southfield getting it done very succinctly, albeit you would understand that Hamlin had gone even slightly deeper than he had on that apex curve. There would have been contact, but Hamlin absolutely nailing it under braking, and Southfield knowing exactly what the limits were there. Further back, Marlon Schwab and Arne Solano still pushing each other along. The 364 driver here getting ready to attack at some point, albeit their pace right now has fallen away from the top 4, and in fact their pace is slipping away from the drivers further back, to the point that Otto Karis and Samuel Kramers are matching them, but otherwise Chandler and Gardner are quicker by comparison, so that's going to be interesting towards the end. As Hamlin here on the outside, let Southwood take the inside. We know he likes to do this normally. The only problem with this is, going on to the final lap, you do not want to do this because it will be a drag race towards the line, and when that start-finish line is 1/3 along the start-finish straight, it is not 2/3 along, so you won't be able to out-drag him. But meanwhile, Kieran Sharp here says, we'll put that at bay because I'm going into 2nd place for the 2nd time today. And well, the number 23 driver there tucks at the inside into Jenderby and Ben, and Hamlin has no response other than to fall in behind. So Sharp there goes for it, and now it's a 1-2 for the TSRC machines, but will Sharp be happy there? Will he be sated, or will he only be satisfied if he takes the win? Well, I suspect it is going to be the latter, but now he's got to be a bit more tactical about this as the trio make the way onwards. We're coming around, we're going to take a quick sip of water, ladies and gentlemen, because I suspect this is going to get even more intense, and into the braking zone we go. Sharp there looks one way then the other, and meanwhile Southfield puts himself right in the middle of the road at the end, teasing, tempting his teammate to go for the dive up the inside, but Kieran Sharp doesn't fall for it. As these 3 drivers really putting a show at the front in terms of what you can do in these Porsche Cup cars. Well, Sharp looks one way then the other again. Now he's going to try and do what Southfield did to Hamlin on the previous lap. That's not going to work. And Graham Hamlin, meanwhile, well, he's just continued to watch, and we're now back into a position much like what we saw in the opening 15 minutes of the race, where Graham Hamlin really being number 3 in this order and having to play the game of patience here. Albeit, of course, in here these drivers did under fuel and perhaps were worried about fuel for the remainder of the race. Well, now they have an opportunity to save some of it, apart from Jack Southwood at the front. Something tells me, given the fact that Southwood took the longest pit stop of all 3 of them, and they only put fuel in all 3 drivers, that Southwood's going to feel confident that he's got the fuel to get the job done. We're coming out of Le Mans. Well, Hamlin here very smooth on his transitions from throttle to brake and brake to throttle. And we're in the double draft here. This is going to enable him to pick up a huge speed. But you can see Sharp there goes defensive. So Hamlin being made to look all the way around. And, well, the second and third place drivers now will start to fight each other. This will buy Salford a little bit of time. Sharp goes nice and tight to the wall there. Hamlin looking for the transition back. And now coming down that start-finish straight. And Hamlin here getting that momentum. But Sharp definitely proving to be a little bit different here. Whereas normally Salford would struggle on the alternative line, Sharp does not. And that means that Hamlin has to wait. But whilst they continue onwards, meanwhile, we've had another moment for William Chandler. Where on earth is that? He's gone a long way out there. He's almost made his way to the regional airport as William Chandler. That's at Le Mans Bend. And something tells me he has been He has been absolutely chucked aside at the corners there. But what exactly did happen to him? Here's a replay. So this was William Chandler making his way in towards Le Mans from Bishop. Into turn 15 he came, and as he did so, went a little bit deep there, but looked absolutely fine, and then took a huge amount of apex curb there, the transitional apex, and that sent him all the way round. Well, got the front left tyre caught up on the curb, and that's what sent him off into distance. And then we had this for Otto Karis only months later. This was your Flying Dutchman making his way through Sunset Bend, and as he headed on the exit, did he hit the wall? No, he had the same thing that happened to Janus Wenzel the second time around, which was lost the rear of the car, and Otto Karis went spinning on around. Thankfully, no cars around in there. Was able to get the car restarted and up to speed once again. But it went very wrong for him as William Chandler's had a further spin on his recovery lap. And well, that sent him to the pit lane there. He's decided to come in. He's picked up a black flag. So he is going to have to take what is going to be a drive-through penalty as a minimum by looks of things. But William Chandler's race is going from good to bad to disaster. He's lost the front bumper as well. So there's going to be repair work. So he's going to make a trip to the pits for a fast repair. And then he's going to do a drive-through penalty afterwards. Well, you wouldn't quite believe it, would you? When luck strikes, it does not strike well for William Chandler today. Indeed, right now, that man, I think, would have the luck to be struck by lightning twice. But, of course, as we do see Jack Selfield on your live screen, trying to pull away. 8.5 tenths now the gap to Kieran Sharp. William Hamlin behind. And will the fight for second might be taking centre stage now rather than the fight for the win. Has Southfield done enough here? Has he forced his teammate to really act as the rear gunner? And, well, of course, this is going to feel bittersweet because if you're Kieran Sharp, on the one hand, well, finishing second today is not a bad thing when you do hold the championship lead quite comfortably. Your main rival, Jack Nuttall, is not here today, albeit there's a drop scoring effect for this season, if my memory serves me correctly. But on the other side of the coin, you want that win to really give yourself a huge advantage. Also, the fact that you do hold all the wins so far, so of course you want to be greedy. And then you have the other computation, which is the fact that you are going to be guaranteeing a 1-2 for the team if you finish second behind your teammate. But you don't want to be the number 2 guy. You want to be the number 1 guy. So it is a bit right now for Kieran Sharp, whereby at what point do you draw the line and perhaps settle for second? And I think right now he hasn't found that line to draw because he's catching back up to Southfield there. And coming all the way through turns 3, 4 and 5. And again, we don't know whether Salford right now might be just also backing off a little bit there just to protect the tyres and protect the fuel. Because, of course, to break away, you need at least a 1 second gap. But you've got to push hard in this group to break away. And also, we do have the question mark, of course, is do they all have the fuel to get to the end? Or do they have to do a little bit of fuel saving even though they all took those quick pit stops? Because I think everyone's going to be of the mindset, which is if I can fuel 95% of the way to get me to the end under my own volition, I can probably save that final 5 to 10% that's needed. Meanwhile, speed of things that are needed here, we need to come back to Mav Gardner, who's looking around the outside there of Otto Karis after Karis' big moment coming out of Sunset Bend. Only a lap or so ago, it went all around for him, but right now, Mav Gardner definitely on the attack here in a cleaner car. And we can see that the front bumper of Otto Karis' car has definitely been very heavily crunched and compressed, but he couldn't find his way through. Meanwhile, too wide through Bishop. Well, Kieran Sharp here ahead, albeit on the outside. Jack Selford tucks back up. There's going to be a small touch between the two of them. In the end, they both give each other room to breathe, and now Sharp looking around the outside here, looking for the momentum, but in the end, Southfield just parks at the apex on the tight line, costs him the slipstream, and will make his way up towards what is Sunset. Well, right now, Sharp way too close there to get a big toe, so he's going to have to do this little by little as he gets ready to go on the inside. Hamlin too far back to get involved here. The two TSRC drivers right now. We're going to put on some more entertainment here. All those Sharp's car twitching on corner entry. You can see he's struggling there for front end grip. That's tyre life now really started to come down, and with 11 minutes left to go, they come across that timeline. We're going to have another 6 laps here at this rate or not, and right now your top 3 still fighting firm, and we've got the 2 TSRC machines right at the front here. Kieran Sharp wants his 4th win of the season. Jack Southfield just wants 1 of them. time. Gwilym Hamling, meanwhile, he wants to try and get the upper hand of the pair of them here and take a win that's not for the TSRC team. The correct racing driver right now looking left, looking right, and he'll be hoping they could have a teammate helping out, but not so. As Sharp goes a bit deep, elbows out there to Salford. There's contact, and it's going to turn Sharp on around, and Salford immediately snaps on the brakes, but Sharp goes to the barrier there. It's a small knock to the tyre barrier. But how's the car hold up? And the answer is he gets it turned, but Felix Smoggy comes up through it into third there, so at long last, it does go wrong in the end for the TSRC machines, and Gwilym Hamling takes the lead. Jack Southfield now has got to try and chase him down with a gap of 2 seconds, and Felix Smoggy, through just opportunism, now moves into third place. Kieran Sharp, meanwhile, he's already had one big moment. And well, in the end, as he drops back into fourth place, Arnsolona and Marlon Schwab will be looking at some thinking, well, something's got wrong up ahead. And well, immediately, Arnsolona there showing you as he weaves sideways there coming out the hairpin what this means to him, which is right, I've got to go. I want that fourth place for the number 23 if I can. But does the show go on here? I think it does. Arnsolona right now has got some work to do because Kieran Sharp, as long as that car is okay, he's going to keep pushing on. There's no meatball flag for it at all. It was a gentle tap to the tyre barrier compared to some of the big shots we've seen here. But indeed, even the smallest of taps, if it hits square on the wheel, it could have compressed the suspension rods, and that might mean the car now starts not pointing straight, or what is known as crabbing, whereby essentially to drive the car in a straight line, you have to drive it at an angle based on the steering wheel. But we will see whether the wheels are all out of alignment or not. And indeed, before we see that, we're going to take a look back in time and see what exactly happened. So this was the pair battling their way up through turns 3 into 4, and in the end, Southfield just came off of the curb there at turn 4 after I think being edged out there in the contact with Sharp into 3. Southfield tried to maintain the 2 wide, and in the end, he came down off the curb and the car bouncing down. He had no choice but to understeer into Kieran Sharp, and that's where it did go wrong. This is what it looked like on board with Jack Southfield as he made his way on through, and we came out the corner. There was the initial contact that sent Southfield high, and he came back down, and that was the contact. No malice meant there, but just ran out of road and ran out of space to operate with, and well, unfortunately Kieran Sharp really the non-beneficiary from all of that. But it was epic racing between them. We can't take anything away from them. And Gwilym Hamling in the right place at the right time to capitalise and take the lead. And well, here is your race leader right now, the 1.1 second gap. But he is struggling to keep Southfield away. Southfield is closing little by little. So I think it's not over yet, as we do make our way on to lap number 26. And we do say hello to Tez244 there, who says clean. And unfortunately, it wasn't quite the cleanest end to that battle. But I suspect right now we've got plenty more clean battling to come until the very end of this race. And well, things definitely building up here to a crescendo. I do wonder if we'll be able to get a word with both drivers in the interior room after the race. So indeed, if we could hear from all of our top 3 today, that would be absolutely epic. But meanwhile, we've also got a grand story here happening for Mav Gardner. We try to look around the outside into Gender Bean versus Otto Karis, and Karis doesn't really defend, he just takes a more natural line, and Mav Gardner, very grandiose line. In fact, he's going to carry all the momentum here and up the inside. Surely this is going to be straightforward then, as he comes from 3 into 4. Karis is still there, and in the end tries to go all the way around the outside turn number 5, but it will be for naught, and Mav Gardner will get that move done, and in Otto Karis with a little bit of power oversteer will lose some momentum. Making his way through the big bend, he will be 4 attempts back, and will close little by little. As they come down to that braking zone, we can see there Otto Karis pulling off racing line, saying to Mav Gardner, look, I'm here. It's the only thing he can do at that point is try and be a distraction. But Mav Gardner getting that 8th place done and dusted. And if he can break away now, gradually he might be able to move forward, chase it after Samuel Kramers. Albeit Kramers being 10.5 seconds up the road, I think that's going to be a bit more of a distant dream rather than a realistic reality. In fact, he's going to go deep. There's Mav Gardner. So it's going to carry on the battle here, and that's going to bring Karis back with him. So coming through turn 11 into 12. Well, right now, Karis back on the inside here. So Otto Karis, he is not giving up, even in a car that's definitely not looking to be the happiest car out there. Mav Gardner in the end being beaten to the post, and now getting ready to go in towards what will be Bishop Bend. Well, Otto Karis back there into 8th place. And you can understand right now, your number 79 driver, he's probably thinking to himself, what could I do with a fully clean car? A car that's not picked up any damage. And well, we're wondering that as well, because I suspect he would have the pace potentially to chase down the top 5, but still that's not the way it's worked out. But he's got to take what he's given, and right now he's absolutely making the most of what he's been given, no questions asked. But as Gardner follows him, and Karis, they're going all the way to the inside wall. This to try and go as defensive as humanly possible. But Gardner here now will be made to go all the way around the outside. They've got another 3 laps or so to go after this one. And Karis going defensive here. Gardner right now, does he manage to maintain that middle road line? He does. And coming on out, well, Karis there can let himself ride a little bit way out. And in the end, Gardner does have to back off there because he wasn't fully overlapping at the apex. Now coming on towards another lap. Well, Gardner here close. And this time looking to the inside, but decides against it. Knows what Karis does, so therefore instead decides to build up a bit of momentum. as they get ready to go towards turn number 3. But Otto Carries here, holding that track position. Does he make himself nice and wide? No, and Mav Garner's just too far back to be able to push and probe here, and instead just has to wait his turn. But back to lead we come. 3.5 tenths is the gap from Hamling to Southfield. This is still going on. Southfield has caught back up over the last couple of laps, getting 3 tenths back a lap. So the gap now definitely within attacking distance. Felix Boggy 6.2 seconds back. Kieran Sharp trying to chase him down, and Sharp's lap times are 7 tenths of a second faster by comparison to Felix Boggy. So the fight for third is definitely on within the next 2 laps if Sharp can keep up his rate or not. But of course after that, as we see them both in the rear of the picture for a brief moment, then it's a 7-second gap to these two, where as long as they don't fight too hard, they should be safe until that final lap. But here we can see Hamling right in the inside. Meanwhile, Southfield trying to go all the way around. This will be all to get a V-shape approach to the apex and give Southfield as much momentum as humanly possible. 3 more laps to go, 4.5 minutes left on the clock. Southfield now looking around the outside, and Hamling goes defensive here. No change at the moment from their normal posture, albeit Hamling on that inside falls back initially, and Southfield is going to sweep on around. Gwellam Hamling now will be on that inside. Can he stay with him? Yes, he can. He does get his nose back in there, so therefore Southfield cannot close the door fully on the Luxembourg driver, and will come through 3 towards 4. Southfield still gets it done. He goes around the outside. So a nice move there for Jack Southfield, and Hamling not really able to respond as much as he would like initially, but now coming through 5, there's the momentum, and Southfield suddenly losing out, and Gwellam Hamling trying to go all the way around the outside from Big Ben down towards the hairpin. 2 wide they cover down, and on the right of the picture, Hamling right now has got to try and do the impossible, which is go all the way around the outside on the brakes, when he decides not to go for the impossible, but instead go for a more realistic move, which is switch it back and build up momentum in the run towards Tower. But Ryan on board with the Cracked Racing drive right now. First he's got to get through Fangio and Cunningham, and more here, looking left, looking right. Which way is he going to go? He's going to go to the outside, it onto the brakes. Your number 98 driver there, just keeping his doors nice and wide. And now for the 351, well, being escorted by there was small rub and no real contact registered, and Hamling at this point back it off there. 9, he can't make that happen. Now he's got to wait for the Allman straight and try and get a really good run through Le Mans. From them, let's make our way back to Smoggy and Sharp, as we do see them doing similar, coming on through, albeit Felix Smoggy, they're really slow to the apex compared to Kieran Sharp. Sharp, the best part, 3 miles an hour faster there on entry, and then had to suddenly stamp the brakes on essentially to make sure he did not send the car in front of him around. Albeit, to be fair, Felix Smoggy's not doing anything wrong, it's just a difference in approaches there. Felix Smoggy having to go defensive, he will cost himself and Sharp time. So their battle now really building up here, and well behind, you can also see that's Arcelona still bringing with him for the ride, Marlin Schwab. Schwab has not been dropped by the Swedish driver. These two have literally been like this since the pit stops, been separated by no more than half a second. But back to the fight for third. And Smoggy goes to the middle of the road now. He pulls over to the inside effectively. And Sharp, meanwhile, decides, right, well, outside it is. I'll bring it back to the wall nice and early. So he's going to cut back to a tight apex, because that tight apex line has proven to be the doom of some drivers, where the rear of the car has just slid loose on them unexpectedly. 2 more to go. Arcelona, meanwhile, still ahead of Schwab, at least for now. As we can then see Sharp taking a quick peek to the inside there, towards turn number 1. That's not going to work for him. Meanwhile, at the very front of the field, they've already cleared the first 3 corners, and Jack Southfield here ahead by 6 tenths. He does seem to be gradually extracting a bit of a gap, and Hamling might no longer have the tyres he needs to be able to get the job done. Weather-wise, by the way, we have not got any rain on the horizon. We said there might be rain in the final 5 minutes of this race. Well, we've got partial cloud, but we've still got brilliant sunny skies as well. Track temperature has dropped significantly by 3 degrees centigrade compared to the start, and the wind has slowed a little bit as well by 1 or 2 kilometres an hour. But there's no chance of rain here, and we're not expecting any rainfall by the finish of this one, so it's going to be in the dry. But to be fair, right now, even if the rain did fall, I don't think it would change anything up within the final few minutes, well, final 2 minutes plus the final lap, of course. But it's definitely proven that in the dry as well, Sebring always delivers, and that's why it is one of the premier circuits in the world and the home of the 12 hours of Sebring in every March. But as we do have Smoggy still holding on to that third place, well, Sharp looking one way then the other. 4 tenths is the gap, and Sharp knows he's quicker towards the back end of the lap. He's got some work to do, as meanwhile there's been an error there for Arcelona. That's Martin Schwab getting through to 5th place. So the DLR FP1 team will be happy with that, to see their car back into 5th. But what exactly has happened to trigger that? Here's a quick replay. And this was Arcelona making his way under, braking into Cunningham Bend, and just outbroke himself. Took too much speed into the corner, recovered it very well, to be fair. Did not go straight on towards the tyre barrier, but in the end he had to yield the position 9. He had lost all that momentum. So from there, we come back to your live racing, and there we can see both Schwab and Solano together. Meanwhile, back towards the front of the field with 40 seconds left on the clock. Into sunset, Jack Southfield goes, but this is not going to be putting his race to a good night because he's got one more lap to go. 30 seconds left on the clock. We will be getting a 30th turn of the circuit in the hour, and right now for Jack Southfield, it's one lap between him and his first win of the season and another win for Team TSRC. Gwilym Hamling needs to try and find a way back past the cracked racing. Meanwhile, the fight for third. Felix Boggy right now is holding on and keep Kieran Sharp behind for one more lap. He will relegate Kieran Sharp to his first non-podium finish of the season, as well as his first non-win. As meanwhile, here comes Solano looking up the inside versus Schwab. But Schwab there decides not to defend. All he needs to do is keep it nice and wide. But in the end goes a little bit too wide there. Here comes Solano looking up the inside now in towards turn number 3. And Solano goes all on the brakes. This time gets it stopped on a dive. And Solano does move back into 5th there. Classic move on the inside and no hesitation. Felix Boggy, meanwhile, what can he do here down towards the hairpin? He's going to keep the car nice and tight on through Big Bend. That's going to make Sharp go all the way round. Sharp has got a nose ahead. Door to door they touch. Onto the brakes. And Sharp right now trying to go all the way round. And he's going to be committed to this. Smoggy meanwhile gives it the space. There's elbows out between the two of them. And Felix Smoggy being propelled onto the grass for a brief moment. But they both stay within track limits. So a little bit firm between the two there. But I think they'll get away with that one. And Sharp meanwhile now having to go defensive in the middle of the road. And Smoggy's not able to outbrake him in down in towards what is Cunningham. It's going to stay put. Meanwhile back to the front. And Jack Southfield right now 2 tenths ahead of Hamling, still trying to hold on for as long as he can. But Gwilym Hamling has saved it up for one final lap here as they roar their way into the final third. Onto the concrete they go, and Hamling looking around the outside of Bishop. This is trying to get the inside into Le Mans. He's not quite close enough to do so. Instead, he backs off. We ride on board the dashboard of the 351 and going through in towards turn number 16. Well, here it's going to be make or break. If he doesn't nail this exit, this could really end his chance of moving towards sunset. Immediately, Southfield there responds, brings the car over to the inside wall to cover it off, but also break the toe initially. Hamling here 2 tenths back, now 1 tenth. He's getting closer and closer and closer. Looks to the outside, and now Southfield goes to fence. Who's going to commit to inside line? Hamling tries to go all the way round, but is it going to be possible here? I don't think it is, because Southfield is there. He's pitched his tent. He's going to make sure he's leading coming out to the corner, but as they drag race the way to line, the checker flag awaits, and it is going to be Jack Southfield who takes victory here today. His first win of the season in round number 3 of the championship, ahead of Gwilym Hamling, and then it will be Kieran Sharp who just holds off Felix Smoggy to the line for third place, and then we will see Marlon Schwab bring on home 5th ahead of Solano, and then it will be a further 33 seconds back to you get to your what is your 7th place finisher there of Samuel Kramer's. He's got a bit of time to go, but goodness me, what a top 6 so far, and indeed it's been an incredible race between them, but we've still got a few more drives to come. And well, in terms of our battles, everything else has fallen relatively silent between our drivers, but Samuel Kramer's will be the next one to come through. And after some early misfortune in the race, well, the DLR FP1 driver, he may not have been able to finish as high as his teammate Felix Smoggy, but to be fair, the 7th place is going to be some good points and really a good solid run back in the race for your German driver. Then it's going to be Otto Karras, the Flying Dutchman, who was able to hold off the pressure of Mav Gardner for 8th place in the end. And in terms of where Mav Gardner is, here he is coming on home in 9th place after a late error for the Sim Racing Collective Esports driver. Spoiled his chance in 8th or even a 7th. And then we do have a further 9 seconds back to Mikel Estevez, who after it all went wrong for him at the end of the opening lap, well, to be fair to him, he's brought it on home in 10th place. He can't be too sad at that. Ahead of Filip Klimovic, who in the end comes home best of the rest in 11th place there for the Kukas crew on his debut. And then we will see it Raymond van Zutphen. He will be your last finish of the race. And in the end, he will be coming home in 12th place. And he is a lap down as classified, so he has already completed his race distance ahead of Janos Wenzel. In fact, no, Van Zutphen has not completed his race. Let's correct ourselves. He's still to finish. It is Janos Wenzel who has finished as classified a lap down. And well, here is Janos Wenzel. He was behind the lead as they crossed the line. So the 313 driver there has seen his checker flag. And meanwhile, here is your last lead lap finisher of Raymond van Zutphen for the Flying Dutchman, who brings it on home in 12th place. What a conclusion to the race, ladies and gentlemen. No doubt about it. An epic 60 minutes of race here at Sebring. And whilst it was 3 main contenders for the win between Jack Southfield, Gwilym Hamling and Kieran Sharp, mistakes for Kieran Sharp ruled him out of the win. And in the end, Gwilym Hamling, for all the pace he had, he didn't have the last bit of puff he needed in order to take on Jack Southfield. And Southfield was able to hold on by only 800ths of the finish line to bring on home a first win of the season. But as our drivers cool things on down, let's take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, after an absolutely brilliant 60 minutes of racing here for round number 3 of the Sim Racing Collective Porsche Cup, brought to you today from the Sebring International Raceway on the premier sim racing platform of iRacing, only available on PC. Southfield took victory there by 800 of the Sim Racing Collective Esports ahead of Gulam Hamling, the cracked racing driver who may have started on pole. And right now, it's definitely been an absolutely challenging race for him, no doubt about it. And a bit of frustration, perhaps he couldn't bring home the win, but I think he enjoyed it every step of the way in being able to come home in second place today. Kieran Sharp taking third there, and frustration definitely abounding for him. And his run of wins for this season has been brought to an end by his teammate, but it is still a double podium for TSRC Esports, and that will propel them forward in the Team's Championship. But of course, Cracked Racing will try to follow them in the Team's Championship, and they've done so today, with full place there for Felix Moggy, who in the end did well to chase down that podium, but in the end, a fourth place seemed to be fit for him. Martin Schwab took home 5th there, behind his fellow countryman for DLR FP1 with a very consistent race as the race went on, and he was able to outrun Arn Solano, whose undercut in the end didn't quite work out for him, and the Kukas crew driver had to settle for 6th. Behind the Swedish driver, it was Samuel Kremers in 7th place there, but a lonely race for DLR FP1, although the team have picked up a huge haul of points today. And Otto Karras holding on to 8th there for the Flying Dutchman, ahead of TSR Esports' Mav Gardner, with Mikel Estevez there recovering to 10th, and round off your top 10 finishers for ZRT Momo. It was 3 seconds behind for none other than Filip Klimovic, and we did see the Kukas crew driver there best of the rest, ahead of Raymond van Zutphen, your last lead lap finisher, and then it was a lap down for Janos Wenzel there, the privateer, as it was then retirement. So William Chandler, Martin Blankensteiner, Liam Giles, Gareth Ronda, and we also had a non-start, unfortunately, for Stefan Hutter. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the provisional results. And, well, that concludes all of our racing here today at the Sebring International Raceway. But it doesn't quite conclude our broadcast as yet. Because, of course, in approximately 5 minutes' time, we'll be back for some post-round interviews of volunteer drivers. And I'm sure they'll have plenty to say about the racing today. But who exactly will we get a chance to talk to? Your guess is as good as mine, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll be back in approximately 5 minutes to find out. Alrighty, ladies and gents, without further ado, it is time to kick off our post-round interviews. And we're going to be hearing from one of our big stars in the freeway fight for the win today. Because joining me now in the interview room is none other than Kieran Sharp. Good afternoon to you, Kieran. And well, what a battle between yourself, Jack Salford, and Gwilym Hamling. In the end, you came off in third place. It wasn't quite the result you were looking for, but goodness me, was it an epic battle.
Yeah, we were just racing really hard at the front. First one was pretty much all on me when I spun, trying to keep it through the middle. Quite bumpy if you get the line wrong on entry. So once my line was set, it was really hard to get it back across. And the second one, I just went a bit deep, and then I think I left just about enough space, but Joe just committed over the curb and I think net coded me around. But yeah, I raced really hard. Had a good start as well. Yeah, it was pretty fun though.
Oh, 100%. I mean, a lot of fun had out there, but dialing it back a bit to qualifying, of course, we've seen you so far this season, 3 wins in 3 races, and always towards the front in qualifying. This time out, not quite pole position, just missed out in the end by a tenth or so. Were you surprised to miss out on pole? Because it looked so it was very close between the top 4.
I think it was on. I think I was close to it on my second to last lap. Just made a mistake, and I did come in for fresh tyres halfway in to try and see if that would work. And I think maybe staying out would have been a bit more better. But Hamden put in a really good lap. He was pretty quick during this round, to be honest.
All fair play. And well, we did see Gwilym in the end absolutely try to run away with that pole position, but come the end of the opening couple of quarters, you'd taken the lead.
Yeah, I had a really good start, but I think the others also had a bad launch. I think they didn't quite bleed out the clutch properly, and it was quite loose going into T1 as well on cold tyres, and I think it caught them out a bit.
Well, it may have caught them out, but not yourself. And then what we saw for the opening half of the race, of course, was yourself, Jack Salford, and Hamling all coming together. The 3 of you battling back and forth. And it was quite interesting to see how, whilst you were the leader initially, in the end, falling backwards in that group. But where did you want to be in that group? Did you want to be the leader? Did you want to be number 2? Or did you want to be number 3?
I was trying to be smooth. I was saving a bit of fuel initially, and yeah, the tyres were a struggle during this race. By the end, if you were pushing a bit too hard at points, the tyres would break away, and you'd have to try and drive carefully for a few laps to bring them back in. It was always a balancing act, and I think I ended up having the quickest pit stop in that one as well by nearly a couple of seconds after like fuel saving aggressively after the first contact.
Oh, indeed. And with regards to those contacts, like you mentioned, them being very light, I mean, purely incidental, but did it change how the car felt at all, or were they contacts that didn't do any damage to the car, just perhaps a bit of damage to your pace?
Surprisingly, it didn't really affect much at all. The car was kind of understeery before both points, and it actually changed the balance of the car that made it like quicker. I just had to keep the rears in check.
All fair play. Just having to make sure you're a bit more on the ball with the car. And in the second stint, we did see you in the end with that slightly shorter pit stop being brought back into the battle for the win. But unfortunately, a bit of an error costing you dear, albeit I suspect it's less your error perhaps and just a bit of contact with Jack Salfield.
Yeah, it's just a bit of both. We're teammates. We were in a chat together. We were just having a laugh. I mean, we had some questionable sends the first time round as well. Yeah, I was just having some fun with it as well.
Oh, fair play. Well, having fun, that's what it's all about. And speaking of the fun, towards the very end, we saw you go on a recovery drive to take third place back from Felix Moggy right towards the end of the race. I mean, how do you find the time in the car after that? Because surely after 45 minutes, the tyres have got to be worn, and you're not worn out at all. And you've been doing the 12 hours of Bathurst.
Yeah, I think it was at the end. Smoggy had I think he was starting to make mistakes at the end. I think he pushed a bit too hard, second to last lap, and I think I'd figured out the car and the current state with the rears gone, and yeah, just managed to make a move stick.
All fair play. You made it stick, and in the end, a third place. So your run on the podium is uninterrupted, but your run of wins has definitely come to a halt. Still, it does mean 2 rounds to go. Championship leader comfortably, but next up is quite the uncomfortable circuit of Alton Park. What's the plan there?
Try and not put in the tyre stacks at the chicanes. The 3D curbs that have been updated on the track on iRacing are be quite brutal and throw the cars around, especially with the bouncy cup car. I think it's going to be very interesting. I can see a lot of people picking up damage next week.
All fair play. Well, the tyre stack's definitely dangerous as well as those 3D curves, but to be fair, all in the name of realism. Get it right and it's going to look good. Get it wrong, however, and it's all going to be in arrears. Kieran, as we do get ready to let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to?
Just the guys at the front this week. It was just a fun battle. We made the most out of it, and yeah, it's always nice to just have some hard racing at the front.
Well, to be fair, a huge thank you to yourself and the rest of the guys at the front for putting on an absolute show. We loved every moment of it. Kieran, we'll leave it there as our championship leader. Congratulations, Dave, on 3rd place. We look forward to seeing if you can continue that momentum at Alton Park with 2 rounds to go. But until then, my friend, have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
All right, see you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Kieran Sharp. And, well, Toon out there having plenty of fun today and enjoying himself every step of the way. And in the end, well, innocent mistakes and small little touches were the difference between him taking the win and in the end having to recover his way to a 3rd place. But no blame there for Jack Southfield. Both drivers definitely giving it their all. And Guillaume Hamling also putting on an absolutely brilliant show in amongst the ball. But in the end, for the TSRC esports driver, just not quite working out the way he wanted it to. But still, a continued run of podiums and feels as though he got the measure of the car, whereas Felix Moggy had not in the late stages, is what enabled him to make that recovery into 3rd. So definitely has got a good understanding of the Porsche 92.2. Of course, at Alton Park next time out, that understanding will be really put to the test, as well as his ability to be able to drive right within the limit all the way to the white line. But for Kieran Sharp, things definitely right now are looking very much fine. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've only had 1 driver off at their time today for an interview. So I think we are going to conclude our interviews there. But still, always good to hear from other drivers, if none others. And of course, today we have heard from none other than Kieran Sharp for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, who's joined us. And after taking that 2nd place, just missed out on pole. Well, in the end, couldn't quite make it the win, but definitely was in the fight for the win and was able to settle for 3rd. But a big thank you to him for his time in the post-race interview room. And we look forward to plenty more chances to catch up with our drivers after the racing in the remaining rounds. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Sim Racing Collective, or everything in between, well, the #1 place we definitely recommend that you do go to is first our website, and that being at www.tsrc.club. And in terms of where you can find our website, you can find it, of course, at that URL, and you can see right here the website itself. Homepage on display, and right in the dead center is our official Discord. All you got to do is click on that link and you'll be able to join our official Discord, and it does mean that you'll be able to get right to the beating heart of the community and get yourself on the grid. On the left hand side, you've got all of our socials as well. SimGrid, our X account, or Twitter as it's also known. You've also got our Instagram, our YouTube, our Twitch, and also another link to our Discord. Along the bottom, our partners and affiliates, and at the very top as well, you've also got links to the latest news in our community, as well as our rules and regulation. The perfect website to get yourself familiarized and then get yourself on the grid, because it's the best way to get yourself in amongst some absolutely incredible racing. But if you don't want to go to our website, perhaps you're more of a social media person, well, the best place to go to when it comes to our socials is our official Twitter at twitter.com/TSRC_official. Well, that way you can stay up to date with all the latest news and announcements in the Sim Racing Collective community. We'd also like to say a big thank you to our partners and affiliates, who do include, of course, Tam Livery, SimGrid, Coach Dave Academy, a Britsy Simulation of Motorsport, and also we'd like to give a special mention to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us here at the Sim Racing Collective as a recommended community. We're very grateful for that recognition, and long may it continue throughout 2026. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, now it's time to turn our attentions to our next round. And of course, in a week's time, we make our way to the United Kingdom for the Northwestern Circuit in the Cheshire countryside of Alton Park International. There, with 2 rounds to go, we've got 2 sprint races on the schedule, a 20-minute followed by a 30-minute, and in the championship, in the drivers at least, it looks like Kieran Sharp, despite a setback of not taking a win today, has it really been a setback when he's finished third and therefore has maintained his lead. Whereas in the Teams Championship, Team TSRC, they continue to just creep ahead, but Cracked Racing are always 1 step behind. But who exactly is going to be leading the way in the northwestern countryside of the UK next time out? We'll tune in on Sunday the 1st of March 2026 to find out. But if you can't wait for that, or perhaps you're absolutely itching to get on the grid with us very soon and don't want to necessarily race a Porsche Cup car, well, we've definitely got something for you, because if you didn't know, tomorrow night we do have the Japanese sprint event, a one-off event dedicated to the Toyota GR86 Cup car, and well, on Monday the 23rd of February, join us at 8 o'clock UK time as we'll be going racing around Suzuka's East Course. And if you do want to get on the grid for this free event, do head to our official sim grid, head to our website and get yourself signed up, because sign-ups will close just before the racing gets underway, and we'd love to see you on the grid. And also do keep in mind, in a couple of weeks time after that, on Monday the 9th of March, we've also got the Battle of the Legends in the infamous Legends Ford Coupe 1934 machine. There's plenty going on here at the Sim Racing Collective, as well as in our mainstay series, and we'd love to see you a part of our one-off events just as much as we would as on our championship grids. But of course, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the Sim Racing Collective. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.